Olá.
Hello, good morning everyone. Welcome to Randon Day 2022. This event occurs in a hybrid manner with participants here at the headquarters of the company, but also being transmitted on our YouTube channel of the Randon companies. For Randon to maintain connected with our investors and other stakeholders, it's fundamental to continue to grow and innovate for a better future. That's why, besides the transmission in Portuguese, Randon Day 2022 has English and sign language interpretation. During the event, our executives will present their challenges, perspectives, and strategies for Randon companies to be able to continue with their purpose of connecting with wealth, generating prosperity. These presentations will occur in 3 panels: Building the Future today, the future of mobility and innovation, and also strategy in action. This morning, we'll also have 2 question and answer sessions which will happen between the panels. So the participants who are here in person can raise their hand, and our team will give them the microphone for this moment of questioning. And if you're online, you can also participate, sending your questions along with your name using WhatsApp 54999895126 or opening the QR code on your screen. We'd also like to notify you that this event is being recorded and will be made available in the Randon Company YouTube sites and also the investor relations site ri.randon.com.br. Now, I'd like to invite Daniel Randon, the CEO of Randon Companies, to have the floor. Good morning, Daniel. Daniel. Thank you, Patricia. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank our board members for their presence, Mr. Schmidt, the advisor of Frasli, and of the Randon companies that are online, all the colleagues in the executive committee, Sérgio Carvalho, CEO, and to our investors and partners, and also to the colleagues online. For us, it's a source of pride to be able to, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I always have bad luck with microphones. It's not the first time, and I'm sure it won't be the last. So I'd like to thank once again everyone for their presence. And for us, we've spent almost 2 years without being able to have this meeting in person. And nevertheless, our companies didn't stop. Those who are here today will have an opportunity to visit our units and see what we were able to do with everyone's effort over the last 2 years. It has doubtless been a huge challenge for us, but Randon companies have worked a lot with the strength of our leaders, seeking disruptive projects with a vision from leaders who are seeking innovation on a daily basis and seeking the importance of cooperating. Various partners have contributed for Randon to grow over the last several years with sustainability. And when we talk about our 16,000 employees, I call them 16,000 protagonists. Our leaders have worked with these protagonists, giving them all the support and especially delegating so that these projects can be achieved. And over a year ago, we launched our ESG project. Our founders always left a legacy both socially and environmentally, and continuous development of governance. But we created more specific goals because we believe that our employees, our protagonists, our leaders are engaged in getting these projects to be sustainable and with a lot of disruptive vision so that we can contribute to our purpose to connect people and wealth, generating prosperity. And when we talk about governance, starting in the 70s, where we went public, this is something that Randon has worked on continuously. In January, we ended up dividing. I was CEO, and Sergio Carvalho now took on the role of CEO. He's responsible for all the operations of Randon companies, and I took on a position to focus on our ESG ambition and to be closer to our customers and our investors, the more institutional side. This is a challenge for the company to grow. So Randon companies have been able to seek evolution in their governance, greater professionalization of the executive committee and the management, and this pleases us, seeing that there's an evolution in this governance, retaining the values and principles which the company established, along with the founders, the colleagues who worked in Randon companies, looking at the future, a future which we believe can provide sustainable growth with a true differential. Paulo worked almost to midnight yesterday, a relevant fact, and Sergio will have an opportunity to explain in detail this important step. It's an important mark for Randon companies to be present in the United States. We are there already with our auto parts, but we believe that it's an important step in the growth and the internationalization of Randon companies. So, as president of Randon and as the president of our board, I'd like to welcome everyone. I hope you have a productive day, and I'm now available for us to talk, to exchange ideas, to show that Randon companies have worked hard, and what we believe is our daily challenge to add value with sustainable growth. Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. We'd like to now start with the presentation of the first panel. To speak about the topic, Building a Future Today, I'd like to invite Sergio Carvalho, CEO of Randon Companies. Bad coffee. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you once again. Welcome. All those who are with us remotely, welcome as well to our event. There's nothing like being together to talk about our companies The presentation which I'm going to make, I'd like to start by talking about what we are as a company, and I'd just like to provide some ideas about the size of our company. We have a net revenue about 9.5 billion in revenue. Remembering that we closed 2021 with 9.1 billion in net revenue, 30 operations, 30 factories, 700 distribution centers. Our products are present in more than 120 countries. We're a company that's very traditional, 73 years of history, a rich history, but even though we've been around for 73 years, we have the energy of a startup, and as you talk to all our employees, you'll feel this energy of a young person of 73 years with a different mentality. We're a publicly traded company, as you well know. Our global presence is increasing. We have a concentration, obviously, in South America, specifically in Brazil, but we have operations in India and China, in the United States, in Uruguay and Argentina. We have a distribution center in Europe, Africa, and we are increasingly expanding our presence globally. We're also very proud to see a Brazilian company doing the reverse path. We're used to large multinationals coming to Brazil to take over these markets. We're in reverse in a Brazilian company winning over markets abroad. We have several strong brands. I'm not going to read them all. I'm sure you're familiar with all of them. Randon, Suspensis, Master, Frasley, Yost, and so many others. We have a leading position in our main product lines, whether it's semi-trailers, air brakes, fifth wheels, axles, suspensions, cubes, or drums. I wanted to go on to a second part of the presentation where we talk about our transformation journey. Danielle mentioned about the team, all 16,000 employees that have made this transformation. I wanted to mention these 4 points, which I think are very relevant regarding what we've done in the last several years. We have a strategic plan. We have an accelerated and sustainable plan with lots of innovation and technology, with a cultural change which sustains all the previous items. I'm going to talk about our strategic plan. We have our purpose to connect people and resources to create prosperity, and we do this in all of our units, all of our vertices: spare parts, movement control, financial services, advanced technology. All these things are united by our purpose. We have strategic planning with 3 categories. We have a 1-year plan, which is our operational plan. It's tactical by nature. We have our 5-year plan. We'd like to expand this a bit more. And we also have a long-term view of 10 to 15 years out, which is more a positioning strategy, all aligned with our ambition. And we established our strategic guidelines. We already had a lot of these within our company, but we labeled them in the way that you can see them, with a differential in innovation and technology, full focus on the customer, diversification of the business for more resilience, but focus, financial strength, sustainability, with a priority for ESG, a company where people want to work, and we want to have an ability to leverage synergies. This strategic planning is not about, it's about strategies for us to be able to reach our goals. We obviously don't have the freedom to look at our strategic plan and share it with you. I think you understand that this is confidential information, but this is the process that we follow. We look at the business environment, what we expect to happen, the trends, whether in regulations, disruptive changes, global economies. We define our strategic imperatives, the things that have to happen. That's why it's called imperative. And then an execution plan. So what we've created here is a process where we have giant details, giant detailing of how we want to execute so that we can reach our ambition. This increases our chances of success. 100% of what we plan won't happen, but this increases our chances of success. We have a detailed plan, a comprehensive plan, and this plan has been followed and executed. Obviously, we don't have the freedom to elaborate on this, but there is a process, and this process is a fundamental part in what we've seen in terms of the transformation of our companies. We changed our structure more recently. We have, instead of the three traditional divisions, which you are aware of, we now have gone from 3 to 5. We now have the assembly, auto parts. Now, a new control and movement. Before these two were together, now they're separate. Financial and digital services. And the final vertice is advanced technology and headquarters. All this has been shared previously, and you've seen how this aligns to our reality. These are the main vertices. Our manufacturing of semi-trailers and replacement parts, auto parts of the heavy line for commercial vehicles, wheel suspensions for trucks, buses, semi-trailers, brakes in general, also replacement parts, the control and movements, which is Frosley, with friction materials, disc brakes, suspensions, and some powertrain components. Financial and digital services, our digital bank, our insurance company, and other services, and technology and headquarters, the CTR, the Institute, and other companies which we have created recently. And we're also a member of this group here, NI1, in advanced technology. The capture of synergies in all that we do. One of our guides is to leverage synergies, and everything that we do, if we don't have a lot of synergy, we don't do. This is part of our DNA, to seek this synergy to maximize our results. It's not just an agglomerate of companies, but this synergy allows us to leverage results, improving our performance. We have several success cases. Just two that I'd like to mention. The purchase of Nakata by Frosley, which happened at the end of 2021, where we had a purchase of 70 million, and then we delivered 150 million. We have several big projects and synergies to deliver. Our shock absorber operation. We took it out of Diadema. You can imagine how hard it is to close a company in that environment. But we took it to Minas Gerais. The new operation is a model operation with the records in production and productivity. This is just one project bringing 16 million reais in EBITDA to Fras-le, and a second project with a distribution center, which we've already announced, bringing 18 to 20 million in additional synergies by the end of this year. This is being implemented. Castertech is another success story. 37 tons of capacity of founded components. We're at now over 90,000. We should reach 140, 150,000. Castertech had an operation here in Caxias do Sul. We worked with Fundituba. This investment has already been paid for. This investment paid for itself in a year and a half. Just to give you an idea of the significance of this. So we did a transition to be able to do the machining, and we had more access to the agricultural field, is something that we think is very interesting. And more recently, we also got Menegatti, increasing capacity. All these companies are performing well. Our revenue resilience is fundamental. Any movement which we do in terms of growth, we need to respect this model in the mobility segment with transporters, distributors, assembly, manufacturing, the building of infrastructures, and a global presence with a greater focus on the Americas, but also Europe, Asia, and Africa. We have a solid cash position, a very conservative amount of leverage. You can see that in 2021, it's just a bit of more than 1 time our EBITDA. If you look at 2015 with the crisis, we got to almost 7 times at that period. But now our position is much more conservative. One of our imperatives or guiding principles was financial robustness. And you can see on this graph that we're very conservative. When we make a transaction, we allow this to go over 1 time, but we very quickly want to return to a leverage near to 1. We have our ESG ambitions that Danielle already spoke of. A lot of what we have here as an ambition was already part of our DNA. We already were working in the social realm. We already took care of the environment. But we brought some of these, we made some of these public. Also, we want to increase the women in leadership roles and have 0 accidents, serious accidents, increase net revenue generated from new projects, reduce 40% of emissions of greenhouse gases, and 0 out the residue in industrial landfills. And so, what's the newest thing for us? One of the elements most critical for this process, or most bold, is this 40% reduction of greenhouse gases. This is a major challenge for us to reach by 2030. 10 days ago, we announced that we will invest 100 million during this period generating renewable energy. Part of our energy consumption will be generated internally. This doesn't represent 100% of what we need to do to reach our goal of 40%, but it's significantly relevant for this process. We have two projects for 2022. In July, we began our operation in China with generating 20% of what we consume, and at the end of this year, we will begin our operation here in Caxias do Sul, where we will generate sufficient energy to feed that entire unit and 30% of the energy for another unit here in Caxias do Sul. These two investments are about 7.2 million, and the investment in China was done in partnership with the Chinese government of 3 million, a total of 10 in 2022. The second point is this accelerated growth, but which is sustainable. To share some numbers, comparing 2016 to 2021, our net revenue went from 2.6 to 9.1 billion. That's a 3.5 times growth. We know that this number from 2016, the market was down, and this number should have normally a higher basis. And we know that 2021, we had some of the benefits from inflation. The multiples seem to be a bit larger, but even if you discount these two factors, our growth rate is quite accelerated. I remember, and some of those more experienced in this room will remember, in the past when we talked about doubling company in 5 years, that seemed impossible. It was a super aggressive goal. I'm not talking about startups. I'm talking about large industrial complexes that can grow profitably. You can grow a lot more than that without profit, but we're talking about accelerated growth, still hitting income records, net income records. And so we're very happy with these achievements. Our employees doubled during this period from 7,800 to 15,500. We like the idea of being able to generate so many jobs. That's important in a country like ours. We also grew just twice. So you can see our productivity gains. If you have revenue growing 3.5 times, but employees doubling, that really shows a lot of productivity increase. Factories, we now have 29, or actually 30 by now, and we'll soon have 31. EBITDA went up 9.3 times. Our net income, 12.4 times during this period. Our CapEx, 8.3 times. I hope you agree with us that these numbers represent a significant change because of the great work of our 16,000 employees. Business resilience is something we already had, and we want to continue more and more. When we look at 2016, this was our distribution of revenue. We had 15% with domestic replacement, 28% in the foreign market. And here we wanted to separate our assembly for OEMs of buses and trucks, and what's more connected to agro, and what's not connected to agro. These combined are about 52% of revenue, and in 2016 we only had 5% from services, and we didn't even have a technology department. Why are we emphasizing this? When the market is going well, these percentages tend to grow. But during crisis and economic difficulty times, new vehicles and trucks usually drops. This percentage of the revenue drops. But there needs to be more maintenance of vehicles, and this makes the replacement parts take on a greater role. Analogously, if the economy is not going well, there's usually a devaluation in the exchange rate, and so this helps your foreign sales. So if you're exporting, you're able to export, you're able to increase exports. So this is something that's already existed, but we want to increase this resilience. When we look at 2021, you see that our revenue domestically went up to 22% in a year when the revenue of the assembly and OEMs, auto parts offered to trucks and buses in this segment, grew a bit more. So our replacement grew despite the domestic growth in the assembly side. This was part of our previous plan to create a replacement powerhouse. This applied to Frosley and other companies as well. So, despite these two bars having grown, replacement parts grew substantially more. This was not by accident. This was planned. It was part of our strategic plan in the previous cycle. Why did we do this? Why was it part of our plan? That we started in 2017, 2018. First of all, because at that time, we wanted to understand what would happen with the new technologies, the new trends for automated vehicles. And so by investing in replacements, this was a safe port. Even if technology switched from one day to the next, we knew that replacement would continue this because it depends on the population of vehicles in the field. We would have a confidence of 15 years of a strong position in the field. It's also a good source of revenue. So the production of trucks in the peak and the valley had about 370% variation. Semi-trailers 270%. So it's much more resilient. It's profitable and resilient. That's why we moved in this direction. You'll notice that in the foreign market, the percentage dropped. Obviously here, the percentage revenues grew, but here we had difficulties associated to capacity. We had to make a choice since we didn't have the capacity to feed the markets, so we decided to favor the domestic market. It's also one of the reasons why our current goals is to invest more in foreign markets so that this percentage, even with all the growth and all the groups, we want it to be a larger percentage. Why do we divide agriculture and non-agricultural? So you can have a better idea of the robustness of our business. So we have the replacement sector, it's very resilient. International revenues as well gives us resilience. But agro, despite suffering oscillations, is a segment with strong possibilities in the next several years. So if we add 22 and 19, that's 41, plus 28. We have a very large percentage of our revenue, which is robust, where there's less risk, and where the greatest risk is in the oscillations in the domestic market related to this non-agricultural sector. We also intend to increase our financial services and digital services and technology, and in the future that will also contribute significantly to our revenue. So a lot of expectations that these two areas will add significantly to our revenue. Now we look at a mix by divisions. In 2016 we had 44% of the in assembly, 50% of auto parts, and financial services 6%. In 2021 the assembly was 39%. This helps us through our resilience model. Auto parts 32%, movement control. We now have 57%. If we look at the first quarter, the numbers would be 60% here and 35% here. Our financial services is 3% and technology 1%. Excuse my long speech, but we're becoming more and more resilient. We've made lots of acquisitions, 14 transactions in the last several years. Our acquisitions have been to internationalize our company and to bring new technology. I'm not going to read each of these transactions. I'm not sure if it's 1 or 1.1 billion reais, generating 2.6 in revenue. At the same time, we did 6 greenfields during this period. We're not just growing, we've expanded our production capacity. We had major investments in capacity increase. Our production of semi-trailers went from 16,000 a year to 38,000 a year, 46% increase. This depends on the mix of products, but our ability to do product foundry went from 28,000 through the purchase of some companies. We had 270% growth, and this will continue to grow quickly in the near future. Brake linings went from 61 million to 83 million. Axis and suspensions went from 355,000 to 635,000, 79% growth. Just to give you an idea. In terms of new products, all the units have wonderful products. We want to mention a few. We have our concept dump truck, removing 1,000 kilos from the weight of the product. This, for the transportation industry, is incredible. With very advanced technology. This concept truck has aluminum sides, and it's got cutting-edge technology. The grain also took a truck. Also, the grain trailer also took out 1,000 kilos. We have our modular platform that will expand significantly, where there's been a reduction of 70 to 80% of the welding. Almost eliminated the welding, or significantly decreased the welding of this platform. This will provide huge benefits, not just for the environment, but for our reduction in fixed costs. Perhaps at a later date we can explain this better. We have our own ABS systems, our own pneumatic systems, piston type chambers, this bus link. We have the railroad shoe. It's innovative. And air suspensions. So over 100 new projects with 47 new patents. Record production in all the units, 32,000 semi-trailers, 65 million brake linings, 520,000 cubes in drums. These numbers represent huge advances in terms of capacity. 1,000 brakes, 33.5 million brake pads. All these numbers are fantastic. Our next growth cycle shows innovation, acquisitions, diversification, and internationalization of our business. When it comes to innovation and technology, Cesar will address this in more detail, but when it comes to products, we've launched our eSys system. We announced this 2.5 years ago. This year, we'll start selling it. We should save 20% of diesel, and 100% of the technology is created in Brazil. We have the smart materials with NI1 and smart composites, embedded electronics. We have the Randon concept trailer. It's very rich in embedded electronics, and Cesar will talk more about this. We have the Instituto Auxílio Randon, but I'll leave that for him. We don't just invest in products. We also invest in the industrial realm. We made acquisitions of robots. We've purchased 321 robots in the last 5 years. 294 were purchased in the last 2 years. Just to give you an idea of the size of what we've done. We made so much progress that we decided to make a purchase to accelerate this process. We also created a digital transformation group in 2020 to promote digital transformation. We're promoting digital transformation in all of our business lines. We have Randon Ventures, which was created recently, working in this segment in insurance, auto tax, Industry 4.0. There's a lot of companies here that we've invested in with a lot of synergy, transforming our financial and digital services. Eli will certainly address all this in his speech. And finally, a cultural change. This is perhaps something which on the surface may seem secondary, but it provides support for all the others. If our culture isn't strong, we won't be able to deliver. We won't be able to do what we want. This is a very broad aspect. This cultural change involves various aspects in the leadership and purpose and courage to be able to change. We've faced chronic problems with less tolerance for units that don't have good performance. We had several units which weren't contributing to the success and the results, but today we don't have this anymore. We've transformed all the units into positive contributors. All the cylinders of the motor are functioning. All of them are helping to add to the power of the machine. We have correct organizational structures and leadership structures. We worked hard to achieve these goals all their own way, but we made a lot of changes over this period. We also made changes not just to the leadership, but alterations to our models of organization. And so we're going to continue to make the alterations which we believe are important for the company to be able to accompany this. We also broke paradigms. We had products which we tried to develop in the past unsuccessfully. We started to talk about this. We launched these products. They are success stories. We made acquisitions. But we're breaking paradigms. This became a success story as well. We sold Randon Veículo. It was close to our heart, but very little synergy with the rest of our plans of the future. I'm going to go back to this topic later. We also have attraction and retention of talent. We are becoming we want to be guided by we have people from outside that accept roles as managers. They want to come work here. But we're also being targeted. There's lots of companies studying us, trying to figure out what we're doing, and trying to poach our talent. So retention is also very important. Agility, we always say, if you arrive first to a given position, you can have better margins. Everything that an American does in 1 year, the Chinese do in 6 months, and we want to learn to do how to do it in 6 or 5 months. And so we're increasing our agility, but also opening to cooperate more and to get out of a mindset that we have to do everything in-house and that we know everything. We need to be able to reach our objectives at a faster speed. So we've invested a lot here in training management. Lots of training, lots of investment. We don't want a Superman. We don't want just 1 or 5 executives that are supermen, that know everything and make good decisions. No. We want 300, 400 managers who are very well trained. The result of having 350 to 400 well-trained managers is much better than have just a couple of supermen. That's why we've invested in this management. And so valuing people, maintaining this respect for people, this isn't easy. We all have to maintain this culture to value and motivate taking care of the environment, security. It's perhaps easier here in Caxias do Sul because our headquarters are here, but we have operations in other states as well and throughout the world. So maintaining this culture is a challenge, but we've worked on that and we've had a lot of success. Yesterday we announced a intention to buy Hercules Enterprises. Our expectation is that we'll close this in 3 to 4 months. And as Danielle already mentioned, this for us is a true mark. I want to explain why we did this. This will provide more revenue resilience and a strong currency. It's a huge market. Here in Brazil, our market peak was 70,000 semi-trailers. Last year was a record, was 90,000. But we don't believe that that's a sustainable number. The American market is 420,000 semi-trailers. 270,000 plus 170,000 container carriers, so 420,000 semi-trailers. It's a giant market. This increases synergies between our manufacturing in Brazil and our operation in the U.S. All these products use axes, suspensions, ABS, wheels, drums, our entire portfolio of products. So it's very important for these synergies. Aligned with our strategic plan, they didn't start now. We've been planning it for some time, and it will open up a huge North American market more quickly for our auto parts. This company produces in 5 years, we're going to have a market with our own parts and a name being created in that market, much more accelerated in manner. This is why we made this operation. This is the first step. Danielle said that this is a mark where we're going into a mature market to compete. It's not a final movement. It's a first step. This will accelerate other companies going there, and we're sure that in 5 years, in 10 years, we're going to look back and see Randon in the United States is much larger, participating in the business percentage of these companies, a stronger and larger group. This is really a landmark for us. It's not completed yet. We should complete it over the next 3 to 4 months. This is something that was signed last night during dinner. That's perhaps why we have a few absences here today, but we're very happy, the managers of Randon companies. But that's not all, folks. Tenchin will mention this as well. This year, we're going to export products made here in Caxias do Sul to the American market, North American market. But perhaps 800 to 1,000 units will leave here to the U.S. with products such as container carriers. This segment is super overheated in the U.S. or super hot. There's a learning phase in the American phase. It was a segment dominated by Chinese companies that can't feed the American market any further, any longer. So the market was undersupplied, so it opened up a very safe entryway for us because the market has a demand that's much greater than the supply. So we are taking advantage of this. We will expand to lots of other product lines. This is the entryway. Not this operation itself, but all it represented to us. We're very happy. It just happened. I wanted a chance to talk about this. We'd like to continue to invest in technology and innovation in all its aspects. We'd like to continue investing in the training of our managers. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sergio. I'd like to remind you that you can send any questions you have regarding this panel or the next one through a QR code which is on your screen. We'd like to continue with the panel, The Future of Mobility and Innovation, which will address the main strategic initiatives for innovation of the company. The presentation will be conducted by the Director of Technology and Innovation of Randon Companies, César Augusto Ferreira. Thank you. I'm going to go slowly because I don't want to have another problem. Excuse me for my clumsiness. I had a little accident recently. It's nice to break protocol sometimes. It's nice to see what Sergio says. We have a company that's been around for 70 years. It's a giant company. It's a monster, solid company. Nevertheless, we can design an even more promising future. So this robust strategy already is bringing results. And so what we bet on, what we believed in, is consolidating. So I wanted to set up a challenge to talk about what we're doing in advanced technology. Sergio explained some details of how we're structured, and the area of advanced technology and tech companies are more and more robust, and we want to maintain the focus. At the companies that we're talking about, it's what you see here on the screen. We want to talk about what's being done in VHR. It's not exactly a company, it's an institute of science and technology. And we have a robust group of researchers and highly qualified people with great technical capacity and good skills to make great deliveries. One of the groups is NI1. We're going to talk a bit about them. Sergio already mentioned some of the purposes. And I'd also like to tell you about CTR, which is my favorite. CTR has a great structure to support the innovation process. I received some background information that we have over 400 people watching online. Perhaps you can't visit the structure, but if you look at our website, you can see how important this is. And all these companies have their own web page, and you can see more about what we're talking about. When it comes to advanced technology with a focus on processes, a industrial park with 31, we were 29, but we're growing so quickly, it's already 31 companies. We have to invest and dedicate in automation and improving the processes to become more competitive. And it's a real need that we have. So, what it's designed in this strategy, what are the main pillars of our strategy for innovation and processes? We have very clear directives. We want to build solutions that are unique and which allow us to ensure this competitiveness to our company. In other words, buying standard market machines perhaps will give us a certain efficiency gain, but it won't be so unique in a way that we can keep a competitor from also buying the same equipment. For us to buy equipment won't provide a competitive difference. We run a risk of commoditizing our production process. We want to invest in new creative solutions, proprietary solutions for some core processes. This is one of the main vertices of this process. As Sergio mentioned, robotization, automation is a big part of this. We're working strongly on this. Another important value of our companies is to improve the safety of our industrial parks. So we think that things that involve transportation and handling of parts or products It's a gray area for risk. So we have clear objectives to remove this type of risk from our companies. This will be one of the focuses of this group. And we can't ignore smart manufacturing concepts which involve smarter production, improving data, answering more quickly with greater visibility of what's happening in real time with live information, fast information in hand to make decisions. And perhaps in the future, we might have AI used to accelerate this decision making and once again add efficiency to what we say. Talking about smart manufacturing, it's a concept which is explored. I prefer calling it smart manufacturing instead of Industry 4.0. I think 4.0 is a package that fits into a box that's somewhat prefixed, and I think we need to have flexibility. We have different complexities. We have facts that handle products differently, and we have to use the concept and not the product. So we're following this route on the screen. We're trying to increase visibility with each equipment line through data treatment, thus seeking this evolution to reach a level where we're totally adapted and the factory can make certain decisions to optimize our assets and to achieve an even higher level of competitiveness. It's also been said that we can't skip this step without a high level of automation. As Sergio mentioned, we have 320 robots over the last 5 years. Over 70 cells or automated lines in the last 2 years. We also mentioned BuzzLink, which is an articulation system, a unheralded concept of construction. This factory was completely designed by us, and it's state-of-the-art globally to build this type of component. This is what we're seeking and already delivering. We're increasingly delivering more automation to our companies. Over 70 cells which receive some type of industrial automation. And between Auto and RTS, we have over 110 dedicated people. We have a team that's very well trained, working on building mechanical devices and also adding understanding of automation and robotics, which will provide this delivery which we've been able to make. Now, talking about products, perhaps some of you may have seen slides like this, because when we talk about megatrends, this is something that we believe in the medium and the long term. I'd like to say that this slide here, based in 2017, 2018, where we as a group mapped that our industry would move towards automation, reduction of emissions, work of data, electrification, connectivity, with a vital need for you to get the most out of your product, most out of your transportation solution, both for people and cargo. We're talking about technologies like electrification, which add weight to our product. So we need to find efficiency. Non-transported weight is inefficient, so we have designed all this, and we looked at this 5 years ago, and we continued to build our pathway. One of the ways which we decided to do this was to design vertices for work. A clarity of where we want to go is with dedicated groups in these three fronts. We have groups working in mobility and electrification solutions. We're looking at a longer term horizon. We're looking at 5 to 10, 15 years out. Our innovation group wants to look way ahead. That's why a lot of the things I'll show you are very much on the vanguard. Embedded electronics, connectivity, and other electronic devices, they tend to grow. We need to work more strongly with this technology, and also smart materials, new materials, which will be increasingly present in the industry in which we are inserted. So we're putting a lot of effort to understand and create solutions in these materials. So, for you to understand how things are solid, and they've been growing. We started working 2018, 2019, and designing some projects. In 2020, we already had 16 projects. I want you to understand that these are innovation projects, always looking way ahead. We continued growing, and we're close to what we think is our stabilization point with 42 projects. These are projects that are like this. Sergio showed some of this. ESIS, this is a concept in 2019, from 2019. This concept evolved. Everything that you see here was developed by our team, starting with the construction of the design, the axis concepts, which are specific and which receive a electronic motor, the structuring of the battery. All of this was 100% developed internally by our teams. Not only does it bring the solution, but we grow in knowledge, and we add to our group things that we didn't know 3 years ago. We're trying to grow and add value and knowledge to our teams. As Sergio mentioned, this solution is totally connected to the ESG policies and needs. We found some routes of customers, 20-21% of reduction in fuel consumption. The impact in the entire chain is very obvious. It's a disruptive solution which provides a lot of value to our companies. With everything, there are challenges. You showed a concept in 19. How are things in 2022? Why aren't we seeing a lot of these parts? We have a barrier which the Brazilian legislation wasn't predictable. It weren't thinking about considering electrification of highway implements. We had to work with the government agencies. My colleague here helped me a lot for us to suggest regulations for this product that could go through all the different administrative structures, all the ministries, government ministries, so that there could be a directive approving this regulation. I think it was May 17th it was approved, just a few days ago. So not only do we have to work with the technology solution, we have to teach or find partners so that the government can be prepared and can respond to these technological changes. This was part of our challenges. When it comes to ESIS, it's quite clear and consolidated within Suspensis. With all innovation projects, there'll be a curve. You'll see the early adapters, then people see economic feasibility. This then scales up because you have massification. It's very clear to us that these early adapters, which aren't as few as we first imagined, but their great motto is to reinforce the policy of ESG. This is we're very connected to this, and we're trying to learn about the next market niche. So reducing diesel doesn't just reduce CO2, but it also reduces the expense of the operation. So it's an expensive technology. It's hard to get microprocessors, the batteries. All this is a challenge. But there is a challenge to find this competitive balance. But people start looking at the operational cost, total cost of ownership. And so as we improve this initial cost, bringing new technologies and more scalability, we'll be able to massify the solution, impacting the market. There are countries where we see evident signs that this type of idea will work for them as well. Canada, for example, has already created in some states incentive lines for this type of thing. As I mentioned earlier, we're not just electricity and mobilization. We are spending a lot of energy in deepening our knowledge in embedded electronics. One of the first examples, which was mentioned by Sergio, is an ABS solution, which we made with a partner. We customized this, and we have the best ABS solution for trailers and semi-trailers. This brought not just a way of learning or another step in embedded electronics. This is a solution which is sold by Master, one of our groups, one of the companies of our group, and has generated around 60 million reais. So we have to look forward, we have to take risks, we have to allow mistakes, but we seek to generate financial results. Recently, we've announced a solution that's more complex for embedded electronics, the Randon Smart solution, where we'll get together several things, combining thematics. This is a very interesting package. Randon Implementos will share this briefly with you. And as Sergio said, we can't tell you everything, but there's a lot more on this roadmap. If you remember the numbers from earlier, you can see that more things are coming. We also have to remember our smart composite initiative. It's aligned with market demands. That's why we believe that smart composites is a front for transformation. Steel is already losing space in the automotive industry because we want to reduce weight, have some level of recyclability. We want to have mechanical results with performance, and it provides flexibility in design. It will allow you to evolve your product to meet market needs. And so, not just to stay in theory, we have our first solution. We switched out a component which is used in our highway equipment. We cut the weight by 65%, and there's already 40,000 parts circulating in the market. It's another solution which became a product. And not just there, but we already have other components, our famous OEMs. But perhaps at the end of the year, the beginning of next year, one of the companies will take on this smart composite. We'll start using this. So once again, our steps are solid and consistent, and we're very happy about the direction in which we're moving for innovative solutions.
só um começo.
But this is
Temos
just the start.
uma trajetória clara, bem desenhada,
We have a
de aprimoramento em
well-designed
busca de novas tecnologias, de novas
project
meios de
seeking
obtenção de soluções das mais diversas.
these
Mas o
solutions,
grande segredo para não
and
ficar
the secret
entrando em muita tecnicidade está nessas três
is in
palavras.
these three words:
Conceitos de biomimética, não vou
biomimetics.
aprofundar, mas aqui existe
This
grande
is
pulo do gato quando você começa a trabalhar com misturas
the key to
das
understanding
mais diversas,
these mixtures
né?
of resin and fibers. Here is where
O
we
conceito de
leverage
reconceituação do
the
processo, e aí
reconcept
entra as discussões que a gente
of a
pode
product, then
entrar, e
redesign,
tem o erro clássico
and not make the classic
que muitos
error
biomédicos cometeram,
with lots of error
que
that
seria
lots of
simplesmente
people made,
substituir
which is just
o metal
substituting
pelo composto e não
the
rever
metal
essa
for
peça.
the
Vocês olharem essa
composite
peça, que aqui ela está num desenho um pouquinho
and not
menor,
rethinking it.
ela tem uma certa reconceituação. Ela não perde o propósito, não perde a função,
It doesn't
mas é
lose
pensada de uma forma
its
diferente.
purpose,
E
but
aí
it's
tem uma
rethought.
série
That's what
de
needs to happen.
outros projetos relacionados a isso, que tem
And so we have several projects
e com muita força pela própria frase.
that have been emphasized in this regard.
Eu sei que tem uma grande expectativa quando fala de materiais que a gente
I know that there's a lot of expectation
o nanonióbio,
when we talk about nano niobio,
nanonióbio, a solução que a frase
this solution,
que a Naiwan
Nai1
buscou, encontrou,
sought and found and patent,
cada vez mais presente em
and is increasingly present in some projects, both
legal
internal and external.
aqui na Europa,
I joked with you about my accident when I was in Europe visiting partners
projetos iniciados
where we have already started projects
tecnologia.
using this technology.
Tecnologia que a gente desenvolveu,
This is a technology which we developed
uma nanopartícula de óxido de nióbio,
thinking about a nanoparticle
em alta escala,
which we can produce at a large scale,
já tudo isso.
and we sought to patent all this. So we have protection both in the form, the particle, the maintenance, the method,
Essa robustez para
to be
poder explorar, ou pelo menos durante tempo, ter quase
an ability to
exclusividade
have exclusivity globally
tecnologia.
with this technology.
Trazendo pouquinho mais de números, eu acho que vocês talvez tenham
Just to share you some more numbers, you perhaps have better access than I do. CBMM in Brazil is the largest producer of niobium and niobium oxide.
eu diria que a CBM tranquilamente tem mais de 80%
I think they have more than 80% of the global market, and these are the numbers. In 2021,
realizados algo em torno, aqui faltou a escala, mas isso
here,
1.000 toneladas
this is in 1,000 tons, 110,000 tons
de nióbio no mundo,
of niobium in the world,
como óxido de nióbio.
and niobium oxide,
Até onde eu tenho número, por exemplo, que a empresa brasileira tem
and the Brazilian company has
30% desse número como
around 80% of this number.
Então isso começa a desenhar pouco do horizonte que a
This
tem.
begins the design
Fazendo uma conta rápida,
where
uma conta ainda muito
if you do a quick calculation,
inicial,
very initial calculation, we believe that if Nai1 can absorb 1% of this market in quantity
tecnologia de nanopartículas,
using its nanoparticle technology, we can be talking about a market
uma receita
or a revenue
de bilhão.
of over $1 billion reais.
Então é pouco disso que traz
So
toda a motivação.
some of this is what provides motivation and very connected to the technical responses of the solutions which we found.
É interessante também dividir com vocês.
It's interesting to share with you
Ele está dividido
that the
de
market
forma muito
is
diferente,
divided
né, em termos de consumo de nióbio
in terms of
na
niobium consumption in Asia,
especial para a China.
specifically China,
Que isso, hoje os grandes
but
consumidores
today the great consumers are basically
em algum tipo de ligamento.
those who use it in some type of ligament.
E tem um others aqui que
Here is other,
segundo
which
a própria CBM nos seus planejamentos
according to CBMM
é o lugar onde a gente tem maior terreno para
is where we have the most room to explore.
Ainda é muito importante a exploração dos metais.
It's the exploration of metals is important, but it's as well consolidated. I think there are significant chances, but these others, which involve several other products where Nai1 have been investing energy, is where there should be greatest growth. I'm talking about automotive batteries,
Já tem sinais claros de que
where we have clear signs that niobium might be transformational in terms of
informação pública, né? Vocês
lifetime
têm uma solução feita
battery lifetime.
fabricante japonês de bateria que
There's a Japanese battery manufacturer
o ciclo de vida
who I think quadruple the useful life of the battery.
carro, né? A bateria vai acabar junto com o carro agora.
We want the battery won't run out before the car. We want them to last the same amount of time. So this can be very impactful. This is some of what we've researched. We've opened projects. Some are more mature, some are less mature, but we have fronts opened in electronics, pharmacy, agro, especially defensive agents, civil construction, chemical agents. We have our first NI1 case for a type of paint with or coating with a anti-corrosive property. I'd like to share with you, but I can't. But in metalworking, we have a foundry, and we've been able to achieve impressive results in the foundry. But all of this, all these fronts, have projects ongoing, and many of them are quite promising. Of course, here I tried to bring to you some applications, some benefits, which we've already identified. Protection against UV, we found some interesting properties that might be revolutionary. And so you can start making connection to what I showed in the previous slide. Increased mechanical properties. I can tell you without a doubt, I'd like to be able to share everything with you, but here we have at least 17 fronts open with different levels of maturity, others products entering the market. I had placed this more openly, but NI1 has a promising future. I was with great companies in Europe. I went to Germany, Sweden, and several other. It was an intense journey. We have a lot of things going on with NI1. So I'm going to wrap up my conversation. I hope I've transmitted the proper information as to how much Randon values innovation. Technology is what will take Randon on the next several years. The automotive market is seeing this increasingly. I went to an event. I've driven cars with the joystick, things that are a dream. The speed of the evolution is significant, and we're prepared for this. If it's not the main purpose of this investment as a strategy for Randon, I'd like to thank you for your patience. I'm sorry for being seated, but I have some mobility issues. We can talk more during the breaks, and feel free to use the QR code on your screen, and we'll try to share some of what we're building for the innovation team. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Cesar. Cesar, stay here, please. Do I stay? Oh, great. Let's save your energy. Let's invite Cesar to come to the stage. I'd like to now have our first question and answer session. This will be mediated by the finance and investor relations head, Cesar Ferreira. I'm sorry. I hope you're enjoying the event. Esteban, if you'd like to raise your hand. Lucas. Good morning. Thank you for the event. I wanted to explore a point that was discussed in Sergio's panel. I think the strategy of the company became very clear to bring resilience to the business, both in terms of revenue and profitability. We saw some of these more vocal movements. We look at auto parts or Frosley. But I wanted to explore the manufacturing divisions. When we look at their history of revenue, we can see the profitability. This cyclical nature becomes more outstanding. We had a strong cycle where we had a good level of profitability, but when we have a negative cycle, this profitability reduces, but this difference is a lot larger when you compare it to the history of Frosley or the other auto parts division. So I wanted to explore with you. I think a lot has been done in terms of revenue or costs, but I'd like to understand what can be done on these two fronts, both downline and cost-wise, to reduce this sensibility to the Brazil risk that we have in the manufacturing of semi-trailers and trailers. How can you increase your exposure to replacement parts? When it comes to cost, how much more automation can be done? How much more robotization can be done? I don't know how much of that was left for other divisions. What do you think regarding the reduction of sensitivity of revenue for the manufacturing divisions of the assembly manufacturing of trailers and semi-trailers? How can we have a better sensibility regarding what we see in the crisis of 2015-2016? That's what I wanted to explore with you. Thank you for your question. I think it's relevant for you to mention this. It's one of the items which we've been working on as a company, increasing our resilience regardless of its vertice. The vertice of the assembly has greater volatility, but we have invested in increasing replacement to reduce this, as well as railway products. But maybe it's worth talking about other initiatives so that our structure can have a lower operational leverage. Thank you for the question and for the answers, because everything you questioned is exactly what we're doing. The responses are correct. In 2016, our replacement within the manufacturing assembly is about 60% of the revenue, and last year it was 10%, and we'd like to grow even further. This will help this resilience. We've worked a lot with reducing our fixed cost. The fixed cost of our implements today is, in a percentage basis, much lower than it was in 2016. We've launched products which will allow us to have growth without adding fixed cost. So, for example, the modular platform, one of the great advantages of that platform, beyond what I mentioned, is that you're able to assemble the base very easily. You don't need giant equipment to paint it, for example. You can paint the components individually,
você faz uma montagem da base da
then
estrutura
you assemble the
para que
base,
você possa
which
ter um
allows you
modelo muito mais simples
to have a
de
much simpler
produção
production model,
e de menor custo
which
fixo.
with a lower
Então,
fixed cost.
estamos nos reinventando
We're
naquilo que seria
reinventing ourselves
a carroceria, por
when
exemplo,
it
que era uma
comes
novidade,
to
não
the
contribuía
bodies.
para os resultados, faz parte daquele comentário que eu
It's
falei,
part of that comment which I made earlier.
paramos de fazer, e nós adotamos um outro
And
modelo,
we adopted a new model
utilizando também de incentivos fiscais,
using tax
que nós estamos
incentives,
fazendo lá em Messias, mas nós compramos a
but
matéria-prima
we
do
bought the raw
agronegócio que
material
faz a transformação para nós,
and we make the
agora
transformation.
é lucrativo, estamos
And
felizes
so
com
now
isso,
it's a
crescendo bem
profitable business
bastante,
and we're growing
no
quickly.
sentido de reduzir
All
custo
this to
fixo,
reduce fixed
essa é a
costs.
diferença. A parte internacional, estamos adicionando
The international
capacidade,
portion is
estamos
adding
podendo
capacity.
exportar muito mais por termos essa
Well,
capacidade, isso vai
for the
trazer
international segment, we're adding capacity, so we'll be able to export.
informações relativas ao projeto Aéropolis agora.
We also mentioned the Hercules project,
Eu
exports
comentei, então
that I
o
mentioned.
crescimento internacional vai adicionar bastante.
All this
Esteban já mencionou a respeito do ferroviário,
is useful. Steven mentioned the highway,
mas todos os investimentos,
the railway
o
segment,
trabalho do, eu diria, maravilhoso do ex-ministro Tarcísio, naquele
all
momento,
the efforts that our
já estão
Minister Tarcisio did.
mostrar, pagar dividendos já em
We'll start paying
2023.
dividends in
Uma
2023,
movimentação muito grande,
and this will require an
e o
increase
giro de cotação que nós temos para 2023 é muito
with an
maior
expectation for
do que nos
2023,
anos anteriores,
which should be much greater than what we've seen in the past.
outros segmentos de
So there are
negócio
other
que
business
vão
segments
ajudar a fazer essa diluição também.
that will help us dilute this,
E os investimentos em
and
automação na
the
fábrica
investments
de
in
produção do
automation
parque
and the
industrial.
modernization of our factory park.
Divisão montadora, talvez pela mesma
Perhaps
dificuldade que você
because of the
mencionou em
same difficulty which you
contratação,
mentioned,
ela não recebeu
it didn't
anos atrás
receive
o mesmo nível de
the
investimento
same
que as
level of
outras divisões
investments that other
receberam.
divisions did.
Mas nos últimos anos nós temos
But in the last several
investido
years, we've invested
em níveis semelhantes, até
in
mais, e hoje
similar
alguns dos
levels,
senhores vão visitar
and
a
some of
divisão
you
montadora
will
para
visit
conhecer
this
algumas células já bastante modernas,
with some
com
modern
outros níveis
cells
de produtividade.
with other levels of
Nós
productivity.
comparamos a quantidade de homens-hora com a
We look at the
produtividade
amount of
hoje,
man hours,
substancialmente, eu não tenho certeza se o Trentinho vai mencionar isso na fala dele,
and I'm sure Trentin will mention this, it's substantially less
aquilo que nós tínhamos
than
anos
what we
atrás.
had years back.
Muito grande de ações,
So we took a lot of actions
algumas, outra vez na automação, vocês vão ter
in
oportunidade de
automation and
verificar
others,
na visitação de hoje à
and
tarde.
you'll see it in the visits this afternoon.
Outras fábricas nossas estão
Our other
recebendo,
factories
agora tem recebido muito investimento,
are receiving a lot of investment, Chapecó.
então muita coisa sendo feita para
A lot's been
trabalhar nesse tema
done.
então confiantes que quando vier uma próxima
We're
crise,
sure that when the next crisis
ainda que
comes,
seja muito lá na frente,
I hope it's
para agora
way in the
nós
future,
já estamos hoje muito
we're
melhores preparados.
very well prepared.
Obrigado, Sérgio. Mais uma pergunta.
Another question.
Pessoal, bom dia. Luiz Capistrano do Itaú BBA aqui.
I'm Luis.
Pela recepção, pelas apresentações aí.
Thank you.
Queria explorar um pouquinho o tema
I
da
wanted to
expansão,
explore
fala de expansão,
expansion
um pouco mais detalhe,
first in a bit more detail geographically,
antes aí da aquisição de ontem,
looking at the acquisition from yesterday,
levando em conta o cenário macro
considering
da estratégia, também no segundo
the
momento,
macro situation
relacionada à expansão
related to the
portfólio.
expansion of the portfolio.
Só para primeiro, então, entender um pouquinho mais em detalhe qual que é a
I
estratégia
wanted to
para
understand
entrar de fato no mercado
the
de
strategy.
vocês já deixaram bem claro que é um mercado que ele estava bastante atrativo,
Is very
mas
attractive
entrada de mercado
with a good
hoje da minha região
entry.
muito chinês. A ideia da pergunta
The
é
idea
entender com vocês quais, dada que foi aberto esse caminho, quais são os principais
what are
desafios
the main
para
challenges
conseguir posicionar
to be able to position yourselves
e o que vocês acham que é razoável
and what's reasonable
share
in terms of market share?
um pouquinho mais de 400 mil unidades, o que vocês entendem do plano de vocês,
What do you see in your plan?
um curto, médio prazo. A segunda pergunta é uma derivada
And the
disso que
second
você comentou
is
também,
derivative of that
aos passos dos quais
regarding the steps that this opens for the auto parts.
o implemento vai te dar essa entrada no mercado
It,
americano. Se você pudesse explorar também um pouquinho
can you
mais
explore a little more
como,
about this topic
através de implementos, vai te dar
and
uma
how these
vantagem
implements will
operacional
give you
para entrar em novas
leverage?
peças, seria bastante rico também.
That would be really,
Augusto,
really
obrigado pela
rich.
pergunta, por participar aqui do nosso Investor Day. Internamente aqui a gente
So
fala bastante
internally,
sobre o
we
desafio
talk about the
internacional,
challenges of internationalization.
mudar o
It's not
produto,
just changing the
também a
product,
cultura, o modo de fazer
but the
negócio.
culture and the way of doing business.
E acho que talvez esse seja um dos desafios que a gente
This is
tem
one of the challenges
também no mercado norte-americano.
in the North American
Por isso,
market.
Sérgio, se você quiser expandir um pouco
Serge,
mais.
if you'd like to expand.
Perfeito, obrigado pela pergunta.
Thank you for the question.
O mercado americano é muito especializado,
The
né?
American market is very specialized.
Como brasileiro, como
It's
nós,
not like the Brazilian
algo
market.
do tipo, isso é minha volta. Lá não existe isso. Hoje em dia, no máximo que você vê uma empresa
There, the most you see
dois
is a company making
tipos
2 or
de
3 types of products.
produtos, é muito segmentado. Mas qual é a nossa intenção?
What's our intention?
Envolver três
Is to
fases distintas, usando
bring
uma expressão
these
comum lá dos
to
Estados
the common expression,
de engatinhar
which
para
is
depois andar e depois
crawl before you walk, walk
nessa
before you run.
primeira fase
So we're in this
nós
first
gostaríamos
phase,
de participar
and we'd
de
like
nichos
to
de mercado.
participate in market niches
E isso para nós podermos nos americanizar,
so we can Americanize
entender um pouco mais de como lidar com
and
aquele
learn
mercado.
how to deal with that market.
Nessa primeira fase,
During
o
this first phase,
segmento de porta-aviões
this
sido
container carrier
atraente para
became
nós.
segment became very attractive. It's a simple product.
Segmento cuja
It's a
demanda
segment
está
where the demand is super high.
oferta baixa.
The demand, the supply low. The demand is high, the supply is low.
Distribuição, por exemplo, você faz as vendas diretas, então
You can sell directly.
simplifica
It's the easiest way to get started
operação.
an operation.
Intenção é de
And our intention is to continue to expand through niche markets. We have other projects, but that are also niches that are profitable.
nada
We don't want anything
para dizer nós somos grandes,
just to say that we're big, look at us.
isso nós deixamos para os outros
We'll
fazerem.
let other people do that.
Nós queremos seguir o caminho
We want to follow the pathway of money
de uma forma assim mais inteligente.
in a very intelligent manner.
Tecnologias de manufatura
The manufacturing technologies in the American market
estão no mesmo nível que os
are not at the same level as the Europeans, and that they're not at the levels that we are.
naquilo que se refere à fabricação de
When it comes to
as operações lá
manufacturers of semi-trailers,
20 anos
their operations are our operations 20 years ago.
não sei se vocês têm
I'm not sure if you are aware of that.
no meio industrial
In the industrial realm,
o que a gente faz aqui exceto
everything is
estar em
very similar except for the fact that they're outdated.
mas todos os KPIs para você
But all the KPIs for you to have production, concerns with safety, technologies,
muito semelhante
is all very similar.
a lidar com a mão de obra americana
So dealing
diferente
with American labor is a bit different.
nossos funcionários mesmo de chão de fábrica são mensalistas, isso tem uma diferença
The way they manage them and their pay structures are different.
preços são muito parecidos com
Their purchasing is very similar to what we're used with.
comercialização. A outra ponta
Sales
é pouco mais diferente.
is a little bit different,
Mercados grandes, segmentos
but especially in the large markets, not in the niches.
muito parecidos.
It's very similar, but
Essa nossa abordagem
our approach
nosso ver muito válido,
is very valid
vai permitir
because it will allow us to meet all these needs.
essa é a fase do engatinhar,
This is the crawling stage,
do engatinhar para uma
but from the crawling
acontecer muito rapidamente.
to the walking, things will happen quickly. And then later on, when it's time to run,
Por vários outros nichos,
we'll expand in other niches, and at some time, we'll go into the mainstream
tipo de produtos,
with
número de volume
products where the volumes
realmente maior.
are substantially larger.
Aí nós vamos puxar a tecnologia.
But then we'll
Americana nesse segmento
take off with technology.
montadores.
The American companies
Uma suspensão com
are just assemblers. They buy one part from one part from another, but we have all the components that we produce in-house.
aquilo que o César mencionou.
Everything that Cesar mentioned.
Nós temos molas,
We have
material composto,
springs, we have composite material,
nós temos soluções
We have
Taiwan, nós temos todo um conjunto de
a full set of
tecnologias
technologies, which they don't
que
have.
compram.
They just buy it.
Nós vamos ter a vantagem das sinergias, do fato de nós termos um modelo
We have
integrado,
synergies from integrated model throughout the Americas.
produzindo tudo lá, os eixos, as suspensões, etc.
We're not going to produce everything there.
Vantagem. Além das sinergias,
But not only do we have synergies,
tecnologias que nós
we
podemos
have
e vamos trazer
technologies
toda a
which we can take there.
tecnologia que nós vamos desenvolver aqui,
Everything that we're trying to develop here,
muito levar para lá
we
também.
want to take there as well.
No norte dos Estados Unidos,
In the north of the United States,
frio nos invernos, para você
it's
tirar
cold in the
a
winter.
neve,
For you to take out
aquela
the
neve nas estradas, você
the
joga
snow,
sal,
you put
sal,
salt.
são extremamente
These salts are very aggressive
para
to
tudo,
steel.
derretem, retentores, essas coisas, tamanha agressividade.
They're so aggressive.
Tintura de
But
nylon,
a
nós temos
nylon
solução
paint has a perfect
tá
solution.
linkando, galvanizando o aço
There,
para
people are
pegar
galvanizing the steel to resist this.
temos uma solução
But we already have a solution
com a tinta da velha,
with our coating,
nossa nanopartícula, que vai ser
with our nanoparticles, which will be ideal for the salted roads in the north of the United States.
de run, de correr,
So we want to reach the run phase
tecnologia de produção.
with product technology.
E vamos levar outras empresas da
And we're going to take other auto part companies.
temos todo esse portfólio.
We have this huge portfolio,
Joint ventures tem limitações,
joint ventures
nós não podemos,
that have territory limits. We can't do that.
obviamente, todas as nossas obrigações.
We have to meet all our obligations, but not with other companies.
Fazer
We have space
esperar muito tempo.
where we don't have to wait. For example,
Suspensão mecânica para
mechanical suspensions for semi-trailers. The American market is undersupplied.
tem um atual provedor lá,
There's not a current
acompanhar o ritmo de
uh,
produção.
supplier that can meet the demand.
O Ricardo e seu time
Ricardo and his team is going to develop a suspension
equipando as carretas que vão sair daqui para lá, e é uma
that
suspensão para o mercado americano.
is for the American market.
Por que não vender essa suspensão
Why not sell the suspension
no momento oportuno?
since there's an opportunity?
Então, não estou pensando em manufaturar essa suspensão.
We're not thinking about manufacturing this there,
Planejando
but
esse
we're thinking about selling it there.
simbiose
This symbiosis, which occurs, the synergy between the companies,
carreta, igual peças alimentam a nossa própria carreta nos próprios semi-remolques,
we
também
feed our own
nos próprios
semi-trailers, but we sell to our competitors.
a nossa área de serviços financeiros
Our financial services
nos ajudam
help us
a
sell and finance the sectors.
tudo isso
All of this is part of
do nosso modelo de
the strength of our business model.
vai ser diferente, mas nós não queremos jogar o jogo pelado do mesmo jeito que
We don't want to
nós temos
play the game there the way they play it here.
o que eu considero uma estratégia
We have a tactic or a strategy which I think is a lot superior,
muito legal para anos à frente.
and it will be awesome in several years forward. Thank you.
Você comentou na sua resposta da utilização da
You commented in your response
semana, e nós temos uma pergunta remota
that we have a remote question.
do Invest. Fernando, obrigado pela participação.
Fernando, thank you for your participation.
Fernando quer saber,
Sergio,
pode falar que
Fernando wants to know what we can say
de nióbio,
about the application of niobium in our products at Randon.
uma coisa que a gente já está colocando
Is there anywhere where we're using this already in our semi-trailers?
para isso, se tem alguma coisa que a gente possa comentar.
Is there anything that you can comment on that?
está trabalhando não só no
We're working not just in semi-trailers,
Semana,
but in auto parts.
a primeira solução
The first solution
vai sair de recobrimento
with a
da
covering
tecnologia
using
da Naiwan vai ser
NI1 technology
vai
will be Fremont.
implementos vem em seguida.
Implements will be next. We have a strategy,
Construída, né, a nossa unidade lá. E também, como eu dei uma brifada,
And
vou contar todo o milagre, a gente logo logo vai trazer uma novidade
we'll
da nossa
bring
linha de produto
another big announcement soon on that as well.
e claro que essa solução ela
And
vai
this solution
consequentemente embarcada também no nosso serviço.
will be embedded in our semi-trailer.
Legal, obrigado, Sérgio.
Thanks, Cesar.
Mais uma pergunta aqui.
Another question?
Podem ir pensando as perguntas, mandando para o WhatsApp.
You can think about your questions.
Responder agora e a gente responde depois contigo, tá?
Bom dia, Victor.
Good morning, Victor Bradesco.
Também em linha com relação à Naiwan,
Also, in relation to NI1,
vocês poderiam compartilhar
could you share
receita potencial,
what's the potential revenue?
pensando nessa comercialização
Thinking about the sale,
que hoje, né, o nióbio é muito utilizado
niobium is used in steel.
7% de outros
7% of others
sentido, né? Dado que para você usar o nióbio em outras
to use
indústrias,
niobium in other
você tem
industries.
um período de pesquisa para comprovar o uso.
We need a research period to
Esse crescimento inicial vai ser muito focado, né,
will you
em
focus in the
redução de
beginning with
custos.
customers that already
Talvez
use?
o wrap de crescimento de receita pode ser muito mais rápido nesse
Perhaps
período.
this wrap up of revenue can be faster.
E a segunda pergunta,
My second question,
também relacionada à inovação,
related to
o
innovation,
VCs e o Randon Smart, se de repente isso abre uma oportunidade
does
para
this open an
estabelecer
opportunity
novos modelos de comercialização de produtos.
for product commercialization?
Obrigado, Vitor. Acho que a primeira pergunta, César, fica à vontade
I
para
think
responder.
Cesar can feel free to answer the
E
first
o
question
modelo de
as to
comercialização, acho que daí o Sérgio
Então,
pode
vou te
começar.
ajudar. Falando de Naiwan,
when it comes to
realmente
Naiwan,
é um fato, algumas das iniciativas que a
we
gente está
had
fazendo são
a fact that
de mais médio prazo,
some
mas
things
a
were more in medium term,
a gente construiu
but we were
uma
able
estratégia
to
na
build
empresa
a Naiwan
para
strategy
implementar essas soluções que a gente
to
já
implement
validou
solutions that we've
dentro
already
da
validated,
iniciativa. A gente
such as the
tem,
coding.
como disse, alguma coisa para apresentar
We have
em breve
something to introduce shortly regarding
nas nossas ligas aqui
the use of
disponíveis.
our
E claro,
ligaments
a gente não, apesar de eu ter
in the
mencionado
foundry,
outros, a gente também está conversando com
and we're
pessoas
also
do
talking
passo,
to
né?
people in
A gente
steel.
também está vendo potencial, a gente desenvolveu
We're
também
looking at the
um
potential
processo ali para poder incorporar e conseguir ter as
to
vantagens que a nanopartícula pode trazer também nas ligas de aço.
do
Então,
with
hoje a
the
gente tem,
alloys.
esse é o primeiro ano, a Naivan começou a ser, até em termos de instalação,
When it
né,
comes to
esse ano
installations,
entrou na virada de dezembro para janeiro, então a gente está ainda começando
we're
a fazer a
still
nossa curva de
trying to
aquisição,
rebuild our
mas
curve,
a gente deve nos próximos
and
meses
in the next several months,
trazer um pouco mais de capilaridade
we
até
should
para
provide
divulgar
more
para os
capillarity
clientes da empresa de como que vai ser esse resultado,
regarding these results
esse
and what we expect
resultado financeiro advindo da Naivan
financially
nos próximos 3, 5
in
anos.
the next 3 to
A
5
gente está
years.
construindo isso.
We're building
Mas
that.
a tua percepção
But your
correta.
perception
A
is
gente tem uma
correct.
expectativa
We
de
have an
um momento
expectation
vertiginoso.
to have
Eu costumo dizer que hoje, de novo, né,
a
pensando
growth
nessa
moment.
ideia de Europa, uma das coisas que a
One
gente
of the
percebeu
things
foi
that we
quando
saw
a
in
gente
Europe
veio com fornecedores de alguns
when we
equipamentos,
looked at the
que
suppliers,
essa história de comprar
this
equipamento
idea
no
of
mundo está tudo muito
buying
caótico e talvez a gente
equipment
tenha
throughout the world is a bit
um
chaotic,
pequeno gap
and
de
perhaps we have a
crescimento
gap
na nossa taxa de
in
crescimento,
our
talvez
growth
porque a gente
rate
não consiga receber os
because
equipamentos
perhaps
nos
we
prazos que
can't
a gente espera.
we
Então,
can't receive the
existe essa
equipment
confusão aí
as
de
quickly as we'd like
calendário.
because of the global confusion.
As coisas estão muito vivas, acontecendo muito rápido.
Things are happening very quickly.
A resposta correta para esse
The
crescimento
correct
a gente
answer
vai ter
for this
até
growth is something that we'll
esse ano
have by
e
the end of
nos
this
números que a
year
gente está vendo.
and into these forecasts which we'll provide.
Os números são, a expectativa é muito alta.
But the
A
expectations are
expectativa
high.
também é muito alta.
Obrigado, César.
Thank you, Cesar.
A segunda pergunta, Sérgio, era sobre o
This
modelo
next
de
question was
comercialização dos
about
bens.
the model of commercialization,
Em função do seu preço ou da
and if we're
potencial
going to change that regarding its price or benefit.
Nós passamos esse período todo
We
vendo
spent this entire period
melhorar o produto,
trying to improve the product,
desenvolver e resolver problemas,
develop product
porque,
problems
por
or fix
exemplo,
problems.
que não era um produto legal.
We couldn't sell something that wasn't legal.
7 de maio,
On May 17th,
legal, então
it
nós
became a
temos
legal
várias
product.
unidades junto a frotistas fazendo as avaliações.
We have several
Nossa intenção
units being evaluated,
com VCs
and so our idea with ESIS
frente tem
is to cover a few fronts.
reboque em si,
There's the front of the semi-trailer itself,
o ESIS, que nós chamamos de semi-reboque Randon Hybrid R, ou híbrido R,
the hybrid R,
e fazer vendas diretas,
and we want to do direct sales.
e as curvas
You saw
de
the
sequência que nós
sequence curves, which we
early
expect,
adopters,
with the early adopters, which are the companies that have their
são meio ambiente,
environmental commitments,
o resultado financeiro
where
não
the
está
financial
lá
result
ainda,
won't be
aí
there yet.
estiga gigantesca
The fuel savings is large, but the costs, especially because of the batteries,
elevada.
are still quite high.
Uma segunda fase,
In the second phase, the costs are more balanced, and it will start to make sense economically. The total cost of ownership makes sense. And then a third phase with mass evolution, because it's a platform
interessante,
that's much more interesting.
maior, né? Mas essa é uma vertente de semi-reboques.
This is semi-trailer line. We also have a solution for trucks.
Não apenas veículos
not just new vehicles,
condições de reboque, nós temos
but
intenção de ter
we
o
have
retrofit também. Isso
also the
tudo vai
possibility
ser
for
feito em
retrofitting.
parceria. Então, tem um conjunto de
So there's a
veículos que
set
são
of options
especiais ao Brasil,
for
mas no
Brazil,
Brasil, em outros países, nós
but
também
other
temos no
countries,
Canadá,
such as Canada,
temos o Chile,
Chile,
temos a Austrália
Australia,
e outras, a própria Europa, em
Europe,
outras geografias,
and
a
other areas
aceitação
where the
de
acceptance
produtos como
of
esse
products such as
será
this
muito maior.
will be much
Isso a gente
greater.
está discutindo, né, Ricardo?
So we discussed yesterday, was it yesterday that we
Nós
discussed
vamos correr atrás
that
de
we're going to
outros
go after
países
other
que já
countries
têm uma visão
that already
mais
have a
avançada,
more advanced
que
point of
aceitam
view
esse
and that
tipo de
accept this
produto
type of
maior.
product.
Como nós ainda temos um nível de,
Since we
no
have
caso da bateria, tem muito componente importado,
a lot of
o que a
imported
gente está
components
vendo aqui
in the
em
battery,
termos vis-à-vis dos preços que nós
the
comercializamos, é um pênalti razoável.
the penalty that we pay is fairly significant, but outside of Brazil,
Esse pênalti não é
this
tão alto.
penalty isn't so
Um
high.
business case fora ele pode
So a business case outside of Brazil
acelerar o nosso
can accelerate
processo
our
de comercialização.
commercialization process for the technology.
Vamos dar uma acelerada no lado internacional associado a isso.
We have to accelerate this internationally.
Sérgio, você tocou num ponto, né, quando
Sergio, you mentioned something.
vezes as pessoas, os investidores
Sometimes investors think just about new vehicles,
quando entra nisso em reboques grandes, né? Mas se a gente
but
for lá para retrofit,
if we look at retrofitting,
frota de
we're talking about
800 mil
800, 900,000 vehicles
praticamente.
that could be electrified as well.
Isso aí tem aplicações, por exemplo, ônibus, né?
It has applications to buses in cities where we have severe pollution problems.
No Brasil, no mundo inteiro. Então, tem muitas municipalidades no mundo
So there's several cities throughout the world
que os fundos para trocar a sua frota
which have developed funds to switch out their,
e
who don't have the funds to switch out
nos seus
their
veículos
fleets,
atuais, né?
but might retrofit them.
Direta para veículos novos é uma coisa,
So
retrofits são
we can sell both to new vehicles and for retrofitting.
Me permite só complementar,
And just to add,
uma sacada nesse último comentário que o Sérgio falou,
another interesting thing about this last comment was
tem a questão da infraestrutura
that there's still
elétrica.
the infrastructure aspect. When we create a solution which allows a hybridization of a vehicle, of these older vehicles, where we can make the electronic parameters converse with them. You can get a standard urban bus today and add this solution, and it has a hybrid solution. It can decrease the emission levels, and it's not completely dependent on the electrical infrastructure. So it's also very appropriate for this transition period of the public policies.
Tem espaço para mais uma pergunta.
So we have time for one last question. I think Lucas Barbosa.
Bom dia a todos, parabéns
Good
pelo
morning,
evento.
everyone. Thank you for the event.
Santander.
I'm Lucas Barbosa of Santander, and I have two questions. The first is regarding automation. You've evolved a lot. If you could tell me a little bit about the importance of the evolution of the design and how much we can evolve the product. And secondly, regarding the American market, can you talk about the niche market of agricultural implements, which is a segment which you're very strong in Brazil? Have you ever studied that in the U.S.? Could that be a market niche that you could take the next step in? Thank you, Lucas. As to the first question, your colleague Lucas,
Sobre como a gente também tem que mudar,
Sergio mentioned that we have to change products.
é uma das mais manuais, possa também utilizar a automação. Né?
So more manual factories can use more automation.
Nossa engenharia sempre foi muito
Our engineering was already very competent in this regard,
nada como a crise de 2016,
but nothing like the 2016 crisis to accelerate some changes in projects.
finalmente a gente começar a usar um pouco mais de automação.
And we started to use a bit more automation.
E essa pergunta com o César também, César,
Do you want to share this with Cesar? I think, Lucas, you'll have an opportunity to visit a solution which is installed right over there, where it's an automation solution with a redesign of a product. The side of the grain trailer, which is designed differently with different materials, different construction, and we have a cell for the production of this component that's 100% automated. So I think that's your answer, but you'll have a real chance to see it when you walk across the hall and take a look at it.
só colocar robô na fábrica.
It's not just putting robots in the factory. There's another important point, which is the concepts of lean manufacturing. I think a basic error that a company can commit is automating certain processes. We were very clear about this. We want to work lean and allow us to automate an adaptation process to make it more efficient. Then we'll automate, and then we'll put in artificial intelligence, where we can use the concepts of smart manufacturing. That's sort of our chain of events. I think that's it.
Sobre a segunda pergunta, certo?
And regarding the second question, the American market and the potential of the agricultural niche.
Porque você já respondeu que
You've answered it as well, Lucas.
vamos querer trabalhar
We're going to want
esse
to
pensamento
work
de
there.
resiliência em receitas,
This idea of revenue resilience is not just us having revenue in the U.S. in that market,
ter resiliência
but having resilience within that market. So we want to expand to the agricultural field. One of the largest producers of grain is the United States. When we talk about niches,
invadir a área agrícola,
we want to, yes, look into the agricultural field as well. That's on our radar.
por aí mesmo.
That's right.
Movimentos vão ser em segmentos diferentes
We'll
e vamos desenvolver nós mesmos
develop other products
que nós
in the bases
sabemos aí muito bem.
where we think we can acquire them.
Obrigado. Com essa pergunta, a gente
So with that question, we're going to close out this first Q&A panel. I'm going to give the floor to Patricia. Can you call us into our break? Thank you, Steven. Thank you, Sergio. Thank you, Cesar, for sharing some of these points here with our participants. Thank you. At this point in time, we'll take a break in our program, reinforcing to you that you should remain with us. We'll be back in 15 minutes. See you then.
gentileza. Eu sei que esse papo é importante, mas a gente vai ter um outro momento durante o nosso almoço para seguir com alguns contatos, com algumas conversas. Muito obrigada pela colaboração de vocês. Muito bem, então.
Very well.
Estamos retomando com a
We are starting back our program for Randon Day 2022 to talk about strategies in action. We have the VP of CEOs, Randon Daniel Ali, and Superintendent Director Paulo Scabosa and Anderson Pantalti. Remotely, we have Sandro Trintin. So, welcome to our panel. Good morning, Sandro. Can you hear us well? Yes, good morning. I hear you all well. So let's get started with you, Sandro, our Superintendent Director of the Manufacturing Assembly. Trintin, you have the floor. Let's go.
Favor, dando apenas a apresentação.
I'm going to send the presentation.
Ok. Bom dia a todos. Muito bom poder falar conosco.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to speak to all of you, even though remotely.
Como comentado anteriormente,
As mentioned previously,
um negócio
we just closed an important deal
montadora relacionado
related
à
to
própria transformação
the
do
transformation
negócio,
of
negócio montador,
the business,
diversificação do
diversification of the business
aqui nos Estados Unidos.
here in the United States.
Por favor, pode passar.
Please move on.
Bom, não vou exagerar nos números, mas
I'm not going to exaggerate with the numbers, but
muita montadora,
to share some of the numbers,
estimamos uma receita líquida de muito próxima
we have net revenue of around 4 billion in
um
2021,
crescimento acelerado,
accelerated growth,
na casa muito próximo da 29%,
compound annual growth rate of 28.8.
de uma forma bem acelerada e
We've been
constante.
growing in an accelerated and constant manner.
Temos hoje 35%
We have 35% of the revenue of Empresas Randon.
68% do
68% of our business
ao agro.
is related to agro.
É uma forma, uma força que
It's a strength
impulsionadora
which
para o nosso país,
drives our
também
country
para a nossa empresa.
and our company.
8 operações
We have 8 operations in Brazil and throughout the world, and 1 CD,
mais de 4.500
distribution center, over 4,500 employees.
falar que nós temos em torno de mais 2.000,
We have around 2,000, 2,500 people who also operate in our distribution networks,
vestem a camisa Randon
which wear the
e produzimos
Randon label.
praticamente 32
And over a year, we produced almost 31,000 semi-trailers.
Nós temos que lembrar que a Randon é a
We have to remember that Randon is the first company, the most mature company.
pelo Sérgio, é uma senhora já idosa,
It's an old lady, but
renovar
needs to
cada dia, cada
renew
mês,
every
cada
day,
hora.
every month,
Já
every
tem
hour.
suas operações mais
We
focadas
have
no
operations
Brasil,
more
também
focused in
tem
Brazil and
na
Argentina,
África,
certain partners in
e agora
Africa,
começando a colocar
and we just
o
started
acima da linha do
placing
Equador.
our foot above the equator going to the United
Uma rede de
States.
distribuição muito
A distribution
importante
network
e
that's very
imponente.
important
Mais de
and
90
powerful,
pontos do Brasil,
and over
com
90 points
a
throughout Brazil,
totalidade do território
covering
brasileiro,
all of the Brazilian
88
territory,
pontos no exterior,
and 85 points
atendendo
abroad,
outros países nos quais nós
reaching all the
nos
countries
relacionamos.
where we have relations.
Ok? E o crescimento é acelerado,
The growth is accelerated in net revenue. We can see how in the last several years
de uma forma crescente.
it has been
Claro, ele tem
growing.
também algum efeito de
There's
inflação,
obviously some
mas
inflation
nós
effects,
vamos ver no próximo slide,
but in the next slide we will see that it's a growth
principalmente pela
that's
produção. Então,
done through production.
nos anos de
In 2011,
2011,
2008, 2009,
nós vimos no patamar
we
de
came
25
from around
produtos.
25 in product.
2019,
2019, 2020.
quebrou então essa barreira
So we broke this barrier
por toda a reorganização,
due to the reorganization and a new means of production
e produzir e baseado em todos os conceitos de automação,
using automation concepts. We were able to break this 25,000 product barrier,
e barreiras
and we started to reach
32 mil
around 30, 32,000,
crescentes,
and we should continue to grow,
toda a capacidade produtiva.
evolving our production capacity.
Ok? E nós precisamos sim continuar melhorando a
We have to continue to improve the resilience of our business.
comentado anteriormente, a Randon precisa
Randon
ter uma receita mais
needs to have more diverse revenue,
receita mais equilibrada,
more balanced revenue
dependa menos
that depends less on the Brazilian market and the variations of the policies,
econômicas e das questões relacionadas a juros.
both economically and things related to interest rates.
Uma visão de equilibrar nossos negócios,
We want to balance our business,
fortalecendo
strengthening replacement parts or railway or bodies,
uma das principais ações já comentadas anteriormente,
not to mention
uma presença
to have
nacional
an international presence
forte
in strong, robust markets
apoie na manutenção
that will support us with the maintenance of this diversified and balanced revenue.
Bom, vamos falar sobre tecnologia, sobre crescimento.
Let's talk about technology and growth. I'm going to avoid repeating things which Cesar already mentioned
O Sérgio comentou.
or that Sergio mentioned,
Nós estamos lançando agora,
but we're launching now
no mês de julho,
in July a new line called
uma linha que já
NUR,
está adequada aos conceitos
which is adapted to the concepts of electromobility, modularity, and embedded intelligence.
uma linha muito mais,
A line that is
muito mais ESG, muito mais
much more appealing to ESG concepts, ready for the demands not just of today, but of the future.
sobre ela.
Let's talk a bit about it. Here's a quick movie I can show, or a film clip I can show.
Por que você não para?
Stop.
Porque a resposta não é um lugar, mas é a atitude de continuar. A Randon não para para você continuar em movimento. houver chão, enquanto houver ar. Acreditar que o melhor está por vir. Um novo tempo está chegando para Randon. Tempo de modularidade para otimizar produtos e processos. Inteligência embarcada para controlar a frota. Eletromobilidade para um mundo que gira melhor. E sustentabilidade para Randon, para o planeta e para o seu negócio. Outra vez, este é o ponto de partida para novos horizontes, com mais tecnologia, segurança, design e rentabilidade. Porque quando você se move em direção ao novo, as grandes realizações acontecem. Vem aí um novo tempo para rodar. Linha New R. Randon à frente, outra vez.
All the new R line is based on the concepts we saw previously, renewable products that provide the synergy with Randon companies, which are connected and allied to our principles and our strategic plan. We have a new concept truck and trailer, a very important project made between Randon and another global company, where we sought over the last 2 years to study in a way to bring the future to the present. It's important to test new technologies and to try to get a balance, not just for the semi-trailer, but between the vehicle, the tractor, and the semi-trailer. This is one of the main projects of the last several years, when we tried to balance or equalize the aerodynamic systems between the vehicle tractor and the semi-trailer. We use various technologies, new technologies, and we try to bring all the technologies that were trends and which were in a mature stage, which could be applied and tested, not just in our testing field or with our engineers, but which could be experimented by the customers and compared to the current technologies. So we're in a testing phase, an evaluation phase with the Randon concept trailer. It's 1,000 kilos lighter. It improves all the dimensions of total cost of ownership. So it provides better operational results or yield. It has embedded electronics and other safety features where you no longer need the support of the driver to be able to cover or uncover. It's highly aerodynamic, and in operations, we were able to achieve up to 16% fuel savings, partly by the truck and part by the semi-trailer. Our participation was around 6% in this gain. So we did a clinic with customers where they could evaluate and point out the technologies that are closest to our present. We also have to mention our Hybrid R line, a product that shows once again what was commented previously by Sergio Cesar, and which will probably be commented by Ricardo later on.
O que é o eixo ESIS, o sistema regenerativo das
This
ESIS,
ESIS system,
Randon, ele torna
the new semi-trailer, makes
a linha Hybrid R.
the hybrid R line,
Conseguimos continuar com a
where we can continue with a diversification through innovation.
força extra,
Here we have extra strength in the semi-trailer is no longer just
que vai a reboque
a product
e
that
passa
is
contribuir
pooled to contribute to, but now contributes to the movement.
com a nossa
This is aligned with our strategy. Randon
estar a reboque. A Randon quer
doesn't want to just be pulled. We want to be a leader
protagonista
in our protagonist in our future.
conta-se cada vez mais
This product is being tested increasingly by customers. We're constantly improving it.
comentado. Agora nós temos a
And as commented, we now have the specific regulations, and we will start to sell
em diferentes formatos,
it in various formats
formatos adequados
until we find the appropriate formats to meet the needs of our customer in the market.
e como não poderia deixar de ser, a Randon precisa de mais
And Randon also needs to be more productive,
customizar mais, poder
be able to customize more, and deliver better products for the future. And one of the ways
mais produtivo,
that we can be more productive
automatizado,
in automated signals
depender menos
and depend less on
desequilíbrios
the imbalances of the market is through new products, depend less
questões de custos fixos
on fixed costs,
possam controlar
and which can better control
a fabricação.
the manufacturing costs.
Lançando programa modular,
We're launching a modular program where we completely change the way we manufacture the product from the conception of the product and focusing on delivering a better and more customized product.
a partir desse programa, construir
And
uma Randon, uma
we're building a new Randon,
Randon mais sustentável,
a more sustainable
próxima das necessidades do cliente.
Randon that's closer to the customer needs.
Novos materiais,
This product works with new materials,
serve para
and
80%,
it eliminates 80%
com isso elimina
of welding,
elimina
so it eliminates energy costs, the use of safety equipment, it eliminates other hazards and provides more safety, facilitating automation, a lower cost automation, allowing the use of new materials that are more resistant, customizing better the product with better maintenance, making us more productive,
e com tudo isso ainda ganhar em logística e principalmente
and
buscar uma
so we can
produção cada vez mais limpa e limpa.
get cleaner production.
E além disso, nós precisamos estar
We also
com produtos
need to be connected to products and customers,
pretendemos cada vez
and so therefore we want to increasingly produce in the sales cycle of the product,
proativo, conectado com
connecting it
o cliente e
to the customer with greater proximity. Therefore, we developed in partnership with CTR and other partner companies, some of them startups already invested in by Randon Ventures, and our concept of Randon Smart, which is our connectivity system, which is being launched now in July,
segunda-feira próxima
and as of next Monday,
premiere no lançamento da linha F.
will be launched in the line.
E continuaremos como
And we will continue
capacidade,
increasing the capacity.
todo robusto, ele está dentro da estratégia da
It's within our strategy of Randon.
estamos cumprindo ele de
We
acordo
are
com o planejado e com isso nós conseguimos
keeping it up as planned,
maiores condições de
and
atender ao mercado.
we can meet the needs of the market. Randon is the company which is the preference for the purchase of a
Falar também em capital, então nós precisamos
semi-trailer. This is a capital good.
capacidade disponível,
It has a certain capacity available because of the level of structure and the amount of time spent,
entregar e acelerar rapidamente as nossas
and we can accelerate our production lines. This is our plan. This is how we operate. And here I share something that might answer the question of Lucas from XP. I think he asked previously. This graph shows clearly by the orange line how
agregando mais valor
Randon has added value.
Onde a inflação ela foi retirada pelo IPCA.
This was removed inflation
O efeito principal da inflação.
for its primary effects, where we showed how we could add value,
Ou mais, as pessoas têm gerado mais valor.
how people have added value.
E se nós voltarmos aqui, nós
And
vamos
if we return here, we're going to go back to 2003,
nós podemos ver que
where we can see that
crises onde nós passamos,
the crises that we went through
e muitas vezes quando
in the
nós
past,
aumentávamos a produção,
and when we increased production, we would lose efficiency.
não ocorre mais
This doesn't happen any longer.
eficiência maior, muito maior e mais
We have greater efficiency that's more balanced in relation to the past,
aqui nós
showing that
computadores estamos melhor preparados
we are better prepared to support the market variations
que em geral afetam mais
that
as empresas.
affect the companies of capital goods.
E como através de tecnologia,
This is achieved with technology with focus on productivity, quality, safety,
melhor entrega,
and better delivery.
em tecnologia que
We're investing in technology, which if you visit the plants
sistema de processamento
with
de
a
materiais e chapas focado
system
no 4.0, na
focused on Industry 4.0,
maiores
this is one of the largest and most updated in the world,
chassi que já tem mais de
where
10 anos,
our coding for our chassis
copiado ou mesmo
has been around for 10 years, but no one's been able to copy it. We have exclusive use to this level of product for the chassis.
cultura nova interna,
Our coding for parts
separando e ampliando a
is separating and expanding our production capacity with the parts,
apoiando ao
helping us
crescimento e já preparando a empresa
supply better,
futuro,
preparing the company
modular.
in the future when it comes to the modular program.
Tudo aquilo que foi comentado anteriormente, sim, nós investimos,
And so
continuamos investindo
we continue to invest
em automação,
more and more in automation and robotization.
automação e robotização inteligente. Sem deixar de falar, mais um
We also need to say, one more please,
aqui no nosso centro, novo centro
here in our new Center of Logistic Excellence, where we centralized all our operations and controls for logistics in Randon, where all our operations are controlled in a single logistical center with fleet management, traceability, packaging, automation of processes, centralization control. And look what's happened. Every year we have reduced our logistical costs regarding revenue. So we're growing and reducing our participation and our logistical cost in our revenue over the last 5 years, producing more than 30%. We need to increase our globalization. This was mentioned earlier by Sergio. We're able to make it more global, Randon, and we're ready. We have our product that's already certified for the American market. It's ready. It's ready for export. Already commented previously, Randon will start loading these onto the ship in August. Let's look at this with a small film clip. This
Nos
way, I'd
Estados
like
Unidos, gostaria de
from the
dizer
United
que
States to tell you
nós passamos a semana
that
visitando os
we spent the
clientes,
week
nós
visiting
estamos
customers.
muito bem com esse produto, com essa
We're
abordagem.
doing well with this product, with this
Óbvio que
approach.
o evento de anúncio de
Obviously,
design da empresa Hércules vai nos fortalecer,
this
fortalece nossa
announcement
proposta
with
de valor de entrada
Hercules
no
will
mercado
strengthen our
americano, mas
proposal
nós
for
temos
value
já
entry,
contatos
but we already have contacts with the
esse
main
segmento.
customers in this
O
segment.
segmento, como o
It's a
Sérgio
segment
comentou,
which
um
Sergio
segmento de
mentioned
nicho,
is
mas um
a
nicho com
niche,
mais de 40 mil
but with over
consultores
40,000
ao ano,
products throughout
que
a
é
year,
mais da
which
metade
is over
do
half
mercado brasileiro.
of the Brazilian
Onde nós
market.
vamos entrar, estamos
So we're
entrando
going to enter. We're
fortes
going to enter
e mantendo
in a big
aquilo que a
way,
Randon tem de melhor:
maintaining
qualidade,
what Hyundai has:
segurança,
quality, safety,
produtividade e
productivity,
relacionamento.
and relationships.
Esse é o que tem levado a Randon ao
This
longo
has
desses
taken
70
Hyundai
anos,
over its 70
e a
years,
partir da empresa mãe
and based on
construiu
this
várias outras
company,
operações
created
que hoje
several
são
other
operacionais,
operations
têm sucesso e equilibram
with
os
more
negócios das
success
empresas Randon.
in
Muito
Hyundai
obrigado,
companies.
obrigado
Thank
por
you.
me ouvir e me coloco à disposição.
I'm available if you need anything.
Muito obrigada, Trinity. E reforçando então para todos os participantes que
Now, I just wanted to reinforce
continuar enviando para o WhatsApp através
that
do
participants can participate via WhatsApp.
aqui desse painel teremos uma nova sessão de perguntas.
We'll have a new question session.
Painel, eu passo a palavra para o
I'd like to give the floor now to Ricardo Escobosa, Superintendent Director, who will bring us information about the auto parts market.
Olá, bom dia a todos.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ricardo Escobosa. I'm the Superintending Director of Auto Parts,
As empresas
where we have
suspensis,
Suspensis, Mastertech, and the joint ventures Master and
todos
Yost.
os segmentos de atuação
In all the segments when we're inserted,
principais linhas de produtos
in the main product lines for all these companies, we're number one,
e nós defendemos
we
essa liderança em nosso
are the leaders, and we defend this position.
mais de 4.500
We have over 4.5 thousand employees, 12 industrial units,
Quando olhamos o faturamento dessa
and when we look at the revenue from 2020 to 2021, we doubled our revenue,
agora, a intenção é aumentar ainda
and
mais para
we want to increase this even further in 2022 with an amount above we already had. There's obviously the market size, but it didn't grow in the same proportion. There's inflation as well, but a lot of it is due to acquisitions and the new products, which I'll mention. This expansion of market share we had is where we added revenue. We're more than double our revenue for 2022. Here are our industrial units. Suspensis, we have basically 3 industrial units: Caxias do Sul, Resende, and our geographical expansion in Mexico, Monterrey. Castertech, we had several acquisitions over 9 months. Over 9 months, we did 3 acquisitions in 2021, where we now have Castertech Foundry in Caxias do Sul and machining in Dayatuba and Schroeder. In Master, we have 3 units. Our painting unit, which serves all the auto part units here, and Flores da Cunha, which is our aluminum foundry. Yost, which is in Caxias do Sul, our joint venture with Germany. And in June, we launched Yost Campinas, an innovative product, which I will talk about later. So the presentation will provide information regarding adding value through new products and expanding business related to the ESG concepts. How are we contributing to commercial vehicles as well as to society with these launches? This is one of the major drivers that our customers are seeking, that society is seeking. So how can we in auto parts defend our leading position, expand our capacity, and continue to expand this market share? We expanded the ESIS system. In the routes of these customers, we're obtaining a reduction in carbon emissions by 20%. This is data that's being confirmed, and we've been working with our customers along with implements. We also launched a new mechanical suspension for trailers, reducing weight by 15%.
Essa suspensão também é a
This
base
suspension
para nós termos
is the
uma
basis for us to
autonomia
have a
de
small alteration in the
colocar ela
products
aplicável no
and
nosso
be able to
projeto
apply it to our
nos Estados
project
Unidos
in the
de
United
expansão,
States,
e a Suspensis vai dessa
and
forma poder
Suspensis will
expandir
be
seus
able to expand
negócios
their
com
business
uma suspensão
with
adequada
a adequate
tanto
suspension
para os negócios do mercado
both
nacional,
for the
bem como
domestic
para as
market
expansões
and
internacionais.
international
E além
expansion.
disso também vou passar um pouco mais para frente, a automação de eixos
And then
era
axle
dos
automation
gargalos,
was
nós
one of our major
duplicamos a nossa capacidade
bottlenecks.
de
We doubled
produção de
our
eixos.
production
Então nós
capacity,
fazemos em torno de 350 mil
so we
a
produced
350 eixos por dia, e
350
agora
axles
nós
per day.
estamos
Now
30,
we're at 700 axles per day.
duplicamos nossa capacidade. Na Castertech, o que vale destacar aqui,
At Castertech,
a
it's worth
gente
noting
ampliou nossa capacidade, então
that we expanded our capacity by 40,000 to 80,000 tons. We tripled our revenue in the last 24 months, going from a revenue of 400 million reais, tripling that, and increased in capacity for new products allied both to commercial vehicles as well as the agricultural market. We are specializing in the assembly of the system, the cube of the vehicle, the drums, and the bearings, with an automated solution, offering this solution to our customers. Also, when it comes to offering innovation and sustainability solutions, we have these safety parts with blockchain technology, with traceability saved in the blockchain, and not just SAP. This brings security and robustness that when you seek out our parts, you know the amount of chemical elements included in our formula. Also, our project where we destine the eco sand, where we reuse all our foundry sand within these concepts, and we recycle 100% of it through this project. Naiwan technology, as Cesar already mentioned, we have various initiatives related to this, and shortly we'll present some solutions geared towards the reduction of weight and using niobium nanoparticulates. When it comes to Master, it's worth noting in this journey of innovation and technology, ESG, products which we were able to develop and supply products as well as ABS, which is sold by this joint venture, over 60,000 units in the market, and our disc brakes along with our partner with technology of increased weight. We also have the piston chamber, and as we increase the offering of products, we're able to increase our revenue by 15% through this joint venture with products related to the core. So we sustained and expanded our market leadership with ideas and products adjacent to our business. Yoast is the other joint venture. The articulation system for buses for one of the largest manufacturers here in Brazil is the great development. It's a technology that's different than the imported technology, and through this local development, we're able to take away the duty aspect, and now we have a local production that meets all the needs. We also have fifth wheels with lubrication, with a grease doser, where you do the coupling between the different parts. You usually have a lot of grease. We have a doser, and now polymetric plates, increasing the useful life, and it reduces the amount of fifth wheels in the market, and we can offer a solution related to ESG principles. We also want weight reduction. That is our customers want. allied to all this technology
vinculados com SG.
related to ESG, we have a journey
Bastante interessante nos últimos 24 meses,
in the last 24 months.
como uma parte da nossa internacionalização.
And so as part of our internationalization, we launched CIS Mexico. We have Master Flores da Cunha, Caster Indaiatuba, Caster Machining, Caster Schrader, and the expansion Yost Campinas. Through all this portfolio of activities that we've had, we've been able to align technology and expanded our business and our operations. Within auto parts, we have begun our strategies within the next cycle to be able to expand. We have Suspensys New Mexico, and we'd like to install and advance internationalization. Obviously, to do all this that I mentioned, we need to have the collaboration of our production processes along with RTS and have processes which guarantee market leadership, guarantee the quality of our products, and which will create value for our final customers. Since we're entering new geographies, we need the right products with ensured quality. And to do this, we did several investments. And here, I'll share a short video showing you everything that we're doing in auto parts.
As autopeças Randon, Castertech, Yost, Master e Suspensys apresentam sua vanguarda em sistemas de automação dos processos industriais. Segurança, qualidade, tecnologia e inovação são alguns de nossos princípios. Investimos de forma consistente e estratégica, visando aumentar a competitividade de nossos processos. Para isso, e com o apoio do RTS Industry, Unidade de Aceleração e Desenvolvimento de Automação das empresas Randon, apostamos muito na robotização das atividades. Esse fator maximiza nossos resultados de produção com segurança e confiabilidade. Linhas de fundição e usinagem Castertech, com robusto sistema automatizado, trazendo segurança para nossos funcionários e qualidade diferenciada aos produtos. Destaque para a singularidade das linhas de montagem de cubos e tambores, com sistema robotizado como diferencial competitivo para nossos clientes. Sistema de rastreabilidade com identificação a laser e a utilização de tecnologia blockchain nos processos complementam as operações da empresa. Linha Yost para a produção de articulação de ônibus, o único fabricante no Brasil. Baseado nos conceitos da indústria 4.0, com processos de solda e montagens automatizados e conectados através da rastreabilidade dos estágios de fabricação do produto. Forjaria Master, um sistema automatizado de manipulação e abastecimento. Desenvolvido para a fabricação de eixos S-Cami, o processo permite maior controle sobre a produção dos componentes. Linha automatizada Suspensys, de vigas de eixo. Infraestrutura de robotização e automação alinhada aos conceitos da indústria 4.0. Garantindo maior segurança, qualidade e aumento da capacidade produtiva. Modernizar processos de fabricação, criando soluções que visem a expansão de nossas unidades e a ampliação dos portfólios é o nosso propósito. E seguimos com estratégias de crescimento para atender a novos mercados.
So I'd like to wrap up my presentation. So with all these products and processes, we have an intention of expanding, aligned with products that add value to our customers.
Depois eu retorno para mais informações.
I'll return later with more information. Thank you, Ricardo. And immediately, I'd like to give the floor to Anderson Pontalci, Superintendent Director of Movement Control. You have the floor. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, all those who are present. It's a privilege to have you all with us. I want to talk a little bit about Fras-le. We're going to continue our line of movement control. Let's go directly into it. I'm going to talk about 4 topics that are relevant and how we transform the Fras-le business in the first expansion cycle. Then I'm going to talk about synergies and operational efficiency, including new products connected with what Cesar said and what we're looking at for in the future, and how we want to proceed in the future. So let's go. First, I need to tell you where we are. We have strong market leadership in all the main product lines, especially for friction material in the Americas, not just Brazil or Latin America, but in the Americas. We're the leading market in its main product. We have 5,300 employees. We have 11 industrial plants, 6 distribution centers, 4 sales offices, and 2 research and development centers. One specifically for Fras-le and one along with Randon. And we already serve 125 countries through our plants and distribution centers. We're not just a capital goods company, but a company with an ecosystem to access the replacement parts. And I want to build this idea with you here with the next slides. Last year, we had a delivery of 413 million of EBITDA, adjusted EBITDA. And we closed the year with 2.6 billion, 88% of our replacement business. That doesn't mean that we don't like the OEM market, but the nature of our product is a replacement, constant replacement product. It's not optional. So we have a replacement market that's larger than the OEM market by the very nature of the products which we offer. 38% of the foreign market. Until recently, this was around 60, 65%. But recent movements in Brazil, we advanced. Brazil became more robust, and our next expansion cycle will tend to balance that percentage. Friction in 2011 was 100% of the business. Once we bought Controil and all the structuring movements which came after that, we started to depend less on a single product. And 64% of our business is for light vehicles. In 2011, 75% was heavy. So this is a transformation in all aspects: geographic, product positioning, replacement versus original, and what's most important, making money. We seek after the money. We don't look for glamour. Fras-le is more than a capital goods company. Why do we say this? We're an automotive company, but we're very close to commerce and services. Fras-le has desired brands, brands that are established in the market. So much more than the B2B relationship with the automakers, we were very close to the market, or those who recommend things in the market. We were just one brand. Now we're Control, Unimax,
São
Metal.
marcas
We
muito
have several
importantes,
brands,
tanto no mercado brasileiro como na
both in the
América
Brazilian
Latina.
market and the Latin
A
American market.
indústria é predominantemente
Industry
da onde provém
is
a nossa receita,
where our
mas
revenue
nós
is
já
from,
temos boa parte,
but
ou 35% da
about
nossa receita
35% of our
produtos
revenue are from
manufaturada por
products
outras fontes.
manufactured
Isso quer
by other
dizer,
sources, by outsources.
velocidade,
This
mitigação
gives
de
us
risco e
speed, risk
flexibilidade
mitigation, and
em
flexibility
movimentos econômicos e ciclos
in
econômicos.
different economic
E como é
cycles.
que a gente se posiciona? Nós temos
So how do
então
we position
a
ourselves?
recorrência de receita,
The
ele
recurrence
vem
of
não do
revenue
bem de capital que está sendo produzido, mas da
doesn't come
frota
from
que
the
está
capital
instalada.
good,
A
but from the
economia gira,
installed
os
fleet.
automóveis, os caminhões giram, consomem
Trucks keep
as
moving
peças que
and
a
consume the
Fras
parts which
produz.
Fras-le
Nos
produces.
posicionamos como one-stop
We
shop
position
em
ourselves
tudo
as a
que
one-stop
sistema de
shop.
direção, até a roda nos
Everything from the
interessa.
wheel to
Tudo
the
que tem interface no
steering
veículo
wheel
com o piso, com o
has
pavimento,
is
assim como
interests us.
tracionar ou
Everything
também
either
parar é algo que nos interessa.
involved in
São
the
peças
vehicle is
de
interest.
alto desgaste, não
Anything with
eletivo,
wear
não
that's
funciona
not
sem elas.
elective,
As
that's
marcas
not
hoje têm
optional.
também plataforma de distribuição
We have
extremamente
a
robusta,
strong
capaz de
distribution
estar
platform
com uma capilaridade com negócios
with
com mais de 700
capillarity
distribuidores
and
no
over
Brasil.
700
Nossa
distributors throughout
cobertura, a
Brazil.
dificuldade de alguém entrar
Our coverage
para
and the
conseguir
difficulty
conquistar
of
esse
someone
mercado,
entering the market to
tamanha
win
nossa
over this
distribuição
space
e relacionamento é bastante difícil.
would be very difficult.
Pouquinho da jornada em números.
Some of the journey here in numbers.
Antes, 2016, nós éramos
Before, in
top 10 da
2016,
América
we were
Latina
top 10 in Latin
empresas se
America
posicionando no aftermarket
in
da
companies
região.
positioning
Já
ourselves in the
somos um dos
aftermarket.
três maiores
Now we're top
da
3
América
in
Latina.
Latin America.
2016 tínhamos 80 países.
2016, we had 80 countries that we served. Now it's 125. So geographic expansion. 90% was friction in 2016 and 100% in 2012. Now it's 49% in 2021, and we're moving towards 46%. The net revenue from 2016 evolved from 800,000 to 3.2 times larger, as well as the EBITDA margin, which also went up 3.3 times, maintaining our reputation, maintaining the profitability. From 3 brands to 5 brands, very strong in Brazil. We had other important moments positioning in the south of South America. We're leaders in Argentina, head and shoulders above our competitors. Hawaii is another company in the region, Fansifi. We had the doubling of our factory in China, growing from that market and exporting from that market. We have a distribution center in Colombia, and we have a joint venture in India with ASK, Juriji, and Sorocaba, Freemax, and Nakata, and other locations. Some of the synergies. There's a great relationship between 2 publicly traded companies, Fras-le and Randon. We mutually benefit in various aspects, but some extra relevant points are the reputation of both companies was very visible. The track record of results and growth and value creation is very positive. The supply chain is shared, commercial synergies, optimization of financing, and others. So moving into the next slide, we mention a few of them. Technology. These are some projects that Fras-le benefits by participating in the Randon ecosystem. When we look at CTR, that was our incubator for smart materials. Fras-le is the company with the greatest technical capacity installed by the nature of the product to explore this business line. NIONE.
Aqui eu não vou estressar o assunto, já foi bastante estressado, mas a Fras-le, além de ter
not only does Fras-le have 46% of the company because it's within CTR, it holds the patents generated by NIONE. So it benefits in this regard as well. And Fras-le has a huge chance, due to its knowledge, to explore this in various product lines. A bit about
criação de
our
valor
production
por
journey
M&As.
through
Só para dar
M&As.
o exemplo da Fremax.
Just
Em
bringing
5
the
anos nós
Freemax
faturamos
example,
60
and
milhões de
we captured
sinergias. Essa
60
empresa
million in
já fatura o
synergies,
dobro do quando nós adquirimos. E nós queremos
and
faturar
we
o
want
dobro
to
do que ela
have
está
the
hoje,
double
no
revenue
horizonte
of what it is
relativamente
today
curto de tempo.
with a short
A
time
data,
horizon.
o Sérgio já em 2021 e
In
muito está por
2021,
vir, porque nós estamos centralizando o nosso estoque de
we're
reposição extrema, um benefício fiscal muito relevante.
developing
Nós
a
estamos
very important
concluímos
benefit,
a
and we're
unidade de suspensão
constructing
em 8
a
meses,
suspension
em
unit in 8
recorde.
months, which is in
Essa
record
empresa
time.
nós queremos levar a 400 mil
We want to take this company to
amortecedores
400,000
por
shock
mês,
absorbers in a single month.
somente naquela unidade. Hoje
Just
nós
in that
estamos
unit,
produzindo
today we're producing
230,
230, 240 on
já um
average,
patamar muito acima do que
a
estava.
level much
Mas
higher
nós
than
temos
where we
muita
were, and
modernização
we
ainda
have
para colher
modernization
naquela unidade.
to collect.
Indo então para produtos e tecnologias,
Moving towards
de
products
forma
and
muito
technologies,
específica,
very
o César
specifically,
tocou muito aqui, eu
Cesar
trabalhei em
mentioned
números.
this in numbers.
Metálicos na indústria automotiva tem reduzido
We
significativamente
have reduced
nas
significantly
estruturas
the
do veículo.
structures of
Todo
the
mundo está
vehicles.
buscando redução de
Everyone's
peso
seeking a
para ter
reduction
essa
in weight
pegada de autonomia em
to
veículo
have this
elétrico,
autonomy.
pegada de carbono. Todo mundo está
Everyone
perseguindo
is
reduzir o peso. E se nós
reducing the
olharmos
weight, and if
2010,
we look at
o conteúdo
2010,
de smart
the
composites ou
content
plásticos
of
em
smart
geral
composites or
era
plastic in general
14%,
was
já
14%
24%.
at
Previsão
24,
para 2023,
with the
quando o
expectation for
aço era
2023,
58 passa a
when steel was
42. Então,
58, it
essa
is now
transformação é
42.
clara,
This
não é de
transformation is
hoje,
clear. It's
e
not from
agora as
today,
tecnologias começam a ficar cada
and the
vez mais
technologies
viáveis
are
pela
increasingly feasible
exploração
because of
global
the
das
scale
redes. Aqui os exemplos, o
of the
César
global
já
exploration.
mencionou, não vou explorar, então esse é o nosso projeto, primeiro
This is
projeto que
our
já está aí rodando há
first
muito
project.
tempo com
It's
a
been
Randon.
running for a while with
Nós temos um
Handol.
negócio importante
We
aí,
have
mas
an
o melhor
important
está por
deal with
vir.
IM, but the best is still
Toda a
to
interação
come.
que nós temos tido com as montadoras no Brasil e
With
fora do Brasil,
the
isso tem sido
automakers in
muito
Brazil and
bem
outside of
aceito.
Brazil, it has been well accepted.
Essa aprovação que se dará no Brasil com uma
This
montadora
approval in
importante
Brazil
tem grandes chances
has a
de
large
embarcar na
chance
Europa.
of
Então,
embarking into Europe as well.
então, se a gente olha especificamente
If we look specifically at this technology, it has various drivers in VSG, which are
Mas eu
fundamental.
coloco exercício que nós fizemos aqui.
I want to share an exercise here. If last year all the volume of
tivesse seus
had
fixadores de paralamas
these mud flaps with this technology, we would have reduced 140,000 tons of carbon
na quilometragem
in the
útil desses veículos
useful mileage of these vehicles throughout their life. It's considerable.
De ano só,
I'm talking about a single year
uma vida útil média de 10 anos.
with an average useful life of 10 years for this equipment.
Muita coisa.
Yeah, it's a lot.
E aí, César também explorou muitas coisas.
Cesar also said that many things are still on the way. We have concrete projects, we have others in the pipeline,
Tem tecnologias em habilitação.
and we have others that are being developed. Some will still be explored.
Recém começou. No produto core, o Sérgio mencionou num
In the
dos
core
slides
products,
dele, essa tecnologia
we saw this
fazer
technology
redução de modo
wants to make
totalmente
friction.
positivo. Não cabe a mim aqui falar do segredo, mas o que eu posso dizer para vocês é que esse processo
I want to just say that this
muito
process
mais
is much
eficiente
more
do
efficient
consumo
when it comes to
energético
energy
para a
consumption.
obtenção deste produto final. Já está habilitado em
It's already
malha ferroviária, nosso,
being
nosso
used
centro de
in
conhecimento, e a
railway
gente vai
shoes,
prestar para as outras
and we're going to start using it with other
indústrias.
friction lines in the future.
Não muito distante também, estamos nos
Shortly,
preparando para o mundo
we are
digital.
preparing
O Auto
for
Experts é uma marca da
the digital
Fras-le,
world.
onde
Auto
a gente
Experts
está
is a
embarcando
Fras-le
várias,
brand where we are embedding
empresas.
several
Começamos no
companies.
catálogo
We
eletrônico,
started with an
breve
electronic
vai
catalog.
ser localizador de
It'll shortly be a
do
local
mercado
parts
brasileiro,
localizer
temos
in the
a
Brazilian
plataforma
market,
de conhecimento,
using
treinamento de oficinas,
our
e a gente
knowledge,
está começando a se
and
preparar com
we're
perfil de
starting
consumo
to
mais
look at a
especializado, mais
consumption
informado, muito
profile
mais crítico,
that's
onde
more
informação
critical.
e conhecimento será muito importante para
So,
a fidelização das marcas.
This will be very important for brand loyalty.
Para encerrar, então, meu,
So to
meu
wrap up
último pedaço,
my last
isso foi o que a gente
slide,
construiu, não
this is
vou
what we
mencionar
built.
com detalhe aqui,
I'm not going to
mas
go into
o
detail,
primeiro
but
foi entregue.
the
Eu acho
first
que essa
cycle was
mensagem que fica clara.
delivered. That's
O
the
que a
message that's
Fras-le
clear.
falou que
What
faria,
Fras-le said we
ela
would
fez.
do, we did.
Nós fomos ao mercado,
We went to the market.
no meio de uma guerra,
muito bravo esse time. O mercado nos
The
confiou
market trusted in
e a
us,
gente capturou 160 milhões.
and we
O que que a
captured
gente vai fazer com esses
630 million in
160
funding.
milhões?
What are we going to do?
Nosso segundo ciclo de expansão
Our
ele vai
second
focar
expansion
mais em
cycle
mercados
is going to
maduros.
focus
Nós
more on
queremos
mature
aumentar
markets.
nossa exposição
We want to increase our international
internacional. Vai nos
exposure.
ajudar a aumentar a capacidade
We want to
de
increase
linhas
our
estratégicas
capacity in
de
strategic
produtos
lines
com
for
alta
products
representatividade,
related
com
to high
muito
representation and
poder de
a
crescimento
lot of
pela
growth
demanda e
potential
oferta que a
for
gente
the
enxerga hoje e também para as novas
increase
tecnologias
in demand.
mencionadas em Marx Commodities e na Ione aqui. Então, a mensagem final, nós nos consolidamos no Brasil.
We are
Ainda
consolidating in
synergias
Brazil.
capturadas,
There's still
projetos
synergies to be
de expansão
captured.
presentes. Nós vamos investir fortemente
We're going to
na
invest strongly
mobilidade
in
no futuro.
mobility in the future.
Nosso contraponto da eletrificação
Our
vai sim
counterpoint
tirar
is
peso dos veículos e contribuir
to remove
tanto
weight
para
from
ESG
vehicles,
como para a autonomia dos veículos.
contributing to ESG and autonomy.
Modelo de sucesso do Powerhouse no
And
Brasil e na Argentina, nós queremos replicar
we want to
em toda a América
replicate
Latina e
the
outras geografias que por
powerhouse
ventura a gente vai
model
explorar. Aqui a
in
gente
Europe,
vai dar
America, and
um
Asia.
pouquinho do que a gente está imaginando. A Europa, mais para o leste
The idea
europeu,
is
ou mais
Europe,
regionalmente falando,
more region
as
speaking,
Américas e
and
na Ásia,
East Europe,
onde nós
Americas,
queremos
Asia is where we want to
Muito
navigate.
obrigado.
Thank
Eu
you very
deixo
much.
agora para a Patrícia,
And now I'll give
que
the
vai
floor to
introduzir nosso
Patricia,
próximo
who will
convidado.
introduce our
Obrigado,
next
pessoal.
guest.
Bom dia a todos.
Thank you, everyone.
Muito obrigada, Pontalti.
Thank you, Pantalchi. And for us to wrap up this panel, I'd like to invite the Executive VP of CTO to talk about digital and financial services. Thank you, Patricia. Good morning, everyone. This is the last talk today in this panel. Thank you for your presence. Those of you who are watching online, I'm going to speak less about numbers and more about something that's about 4% of the group's revenue. This is our services area, and it can be a vertice which puts us in a more relevant position within that strategy of diversification. And this is done using the existing verticals with lots of synergy. I first want to tell you a bit about the story, the history of how we got here into services. We had our consortium and then our bank. Consortium has been around for 35 years. The Randon Bank, 12 years. And the insurance company, which has been with us for a year. So we have a solid base of financial services. So what are we looking at in the future? If you look at the last 2-3 years, we added Randon Ventures. Randon Ventures doesn't attend to just the services vertice, it attends all of them. With startups participating in these projects, that's part of our larger strategy as a group. Connexo is a platform where we start to measure our challenges with local businessmen where we are. And look, we created, with over 70 people, we call digital businesses. It's a company, we're a company of engineers. So we had to add software engineers, because many of these developments that are being developed today at Randon, some in partnership, or some outside, or some inside. If we look at the evolution of services over the last 4 or 5 years, we had an average growth of 11%. Our services were always focused on meeting the needs of the auto parts stores, the consortium, and what we're starting to see in the last 2 years, where we have a growth of around 33%, And this accompanies the growth of the group, but it maintains that participation at 4%, where this service area will need to grow much faster than the other vertices. And this is being demanded of us as a group. It's a trend. All industries end up becoming technology companies. But also software technology, and finally services. Because our consumer is changing their behavior. They're changing the way of doing business and changing the way they make transactions. This shows this vertice. We don't distance ourselves from transportation and logistics. That's our strength. But where is the service vertice going? Transportation and logistics. We're not going to leave that focus, but we also have agro, retail, we have consortium and insurance, but we start to have new business. We start having startups, and I'll explain that to you. This future, which we believe in, focused on transportation and logistics, making a parallel with finances and fintechs, logistics and transportation is still developing their growth. So we have a market reputation. Randon is recognized. We have all the players. So we're going to focus on where we are. How are we going to do this? I want to reinforce 5 points. These are the levers which we have. Open innovation, I'm going to skip a bit, but it's been used by all the vertices. It's not just technology and services, but we're always focusing with the customer in the center. The customer is what I mentioned. There's a change in customer behavior, even our customer, a traditional industry for auto parts and highway equipment. We see another way of making decisions, things that are different than in the past. We want to understand that better and integrate more products and processes which will add to the loyalty of these customers through a package of services. So, the more we have of the ecosystem, Randon ecosystem, the more loyalty will develop in all the other vertices. This generates new business. This is the roadmap of the services where there are structures that are consolidated and others that are developing. And so there are other business areas that we can enter. But at the end of it all, if you look at the key here at the bottom, trucker, logistics, auto parts, implements, suppliers, and other, and we're dividing this in this first wave where almost everything is green. We're talking about logistics. We have one with suppliers, a anticipation of receivables, and credit for corporations with auto parts. The first wave of growth of services happens within the ecosystem where we're well known and strong. Strategic alliances are important. Since the Randon Group can't be alone, and we've realized that, and we need partnerships. We've advanced with the startups. If you look at Randon Ventures, it has this startup culture. 4 or 5 years ago, we didn't have any startups connected with our stronger businesses, unlike today. We grew a lot in this maturity, but we have very traditional, strong partners in the market, like John Deere. We've been a partner with the national consortium of John Deere for 25 years. So we have other partners that are relevant. If you look at the traditional partners and join with this ecosystem, plus the startups Randon has used in a unique manner for industry, and we look at our 4 vertices, you can see that we have ability to build something different. We had over 3,000 startups accessed directly and indirectly by our banks and partner banks. Some are in the databases. And over 50 were contracted, not just as service providers. Over 50 of these startups invested. They're with Randon companies in strategic projects for products, technologies, but also in softwares and services. We learned to do something very different in the last several years, and we're sure this will help us grow more quickly. The engineering, which I mentioned, which is not traditional engineering for products and technology, today we have a dedicated cell which is growing very quickly. We talk about robotics. And we have over 290 robots. They're not physical robots, but some of these are already being made by these robots. We have artificial intelligence and employees that are competent in this regard, creating strategic projects with partners. And we're talking about an academy we're having to develop. This is a new language. This market for services and technology, not for products, is one where we have to move quickly, and this is good for us as a group because everything that we practice here gives us the ability to accelerate all of our other vertices. And finally, I'd like to share some interesting data talking about the people who work in this vertice, over 300 people, 71 are outside of engineering, and of these 71, a third is distance. They work remotely. So this new way of working is already present, not just in this vertice, but this is happening in the industrial vertices as well. Randon is moving very quickly to understand this new generation, these new behaviors, to be able to be a company that can capture the best of these generations. We're already talking about other ideas, and these are some examples. And so to finalize, this shows what we want through the services line. If the group is going to grow X%, the rate of services has to be larger than that. We have all this leveraged in partnerships and alliances, perhaps more than traditionally in the past. we're not going to move away from transportation and logistics.
Várias vezes, né? Para ficar com uma mensagem bastante chave
And I really
no
want
final.
to emphasize
E a
that.
gente começa a enxergar aos
And we
poucos
start
esse
to
caminho,
see
né, de uma plataforma
how
de
we can
serviços
develop a platform of
multi-vertical,
services
né?
with the customer in the center,
Talvez atendendo várias verticais
perhaps
e fidelizando ainda
reaching
mais
several
o
vertices,
cliente. E sempre
always,
a força, né, Sérgio? Tu vem falando muito
has been
da
said,
sinergia das
looking at the
nossas
synergy
verticais.
of our
E com um
vertices.
ecossistema já
Those with an
montado, com
ecosystem,
essa diversificação que o Sérgio
with this
mostrou,
diversification,
e se a gente tiver sabedoria e inteligência,
if we have
né,
wisdom
agilidade para fazer isso, mas com
and
rapidez,
quickness,
a gente rapidamente se torna
we can
um
become
player bastante relevante
a
nesse
relevant player
processo.
in this process.
Gente, para finalizar, eu queria deixar meu
So, to
agradecimento
finalize, I'd like to
a toda essa jornada aí de transformação, né, que
I'd
foi
like to
gerada
talk
pelo
about
Daniel,
this
hoje agora
journey of
como Sérgio,
transformation.
nosso executivo. Eu costumo dizer que uma das
I
formas
usually
da
say
gente
that
respeitar
one of the ways we respect the legacy which we received from the founders and the executives who came before is for us to build the next 75 years. To build the next 75, 80 years, we need to sometimes make changes. We need to have the courage to make changes and understand that we have to advance in services and have a greater impact. So we have this possibility to do this. I think I speak for the executives when I say that we want to respect the legacy which we received, and we want to leave Randon increasingly stronger and connected. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Daniela. We now go to questions and answers. And also with Sandro, who's with us remotely, to mediate this session. I want to invite the director, Esteban. Thank you, Patricia. Daniel, Tranchin, Ricardo, thank you. These panels really gave us an overhead view, let us look at the future. It was really cool. There's a lot of things which we're doing now. So I want to open up the space for questions. I think we have our first question in person. I'm from Citibank. The acquisition of Hercules. And I was surprised to learn that the U.S. has less advanced technologies than we do for production. They have super expensive labor, $15 an hour, minimum wage. What would you change in the production process of Hercules to make such an acquisition? Perhaps technology there isn't their main selling point? And do you think that the Chinese will be less important in the American market? We've seen in the last 5 years lots of litigation between China and the United States, and some want a supply chain closer to the United States. Thinking about production in the Americas might supplement what came from China. Perhaps not totally, but on the margin. Will there be more interaction between Brazil and the U.S., which is this huge market? The question was addressed to you, and perhaps Ricardo, if you want to add how that fits into our strategy. That would be cool. Thank you. We were here. We visited several customers. And we need to know if the customers know the Randon, despite Randon doesn't operate in these markets.
Mas eles conhecem Randon, têm conhecido cada vez mais Randon
Randon
e entendendo a
is
relevância do grupo Randon não
very
só
significant.
onde ele atua no Brasil, mas no mundo. A frase já está atuando
Frazley
nos Estados Unidos,
is
no
already
processo,
active in the
e
U.S.,
agora chegou a nossa vez.
and now it's our turn.
Obviamente, o que nos destaca é tudo aquilo que nós falamos anteriormente, toda a sinergia.
What stands out to us is the synergies.
Então, elas são ultra dependentes da cadeia de
The companies there are very dependent on the supply chain. The supply chain is dispersed. It's very dependent on the Chinese supply chain. And these companies invested very little in terms of modernization and automation. Even with high salaries, there's a concept of functionality that we're going to seek to meet not only the functionality, all the best relationship and delivery of our technologies. The clients are open to discuss new technologies.
Agora, após o anúncio, os primeiros feedbacks também que nós recebemos de alguns que nós conversamos e não podíamos
we talked to some
falar sobre o tema específico, é que sim, eles estão muito satisfeitos.
that they're very satisfied with our presence. The speed of our delivery and what we could offer in the American market, that we've been working in the strategy. I think they have a good perspective of the technology which they saw at Randon. All the things which we have capacity for. This is significant due to the volume that we buy, so that they can have competitive costs. So it's a package. Randon is a channel to enter. Frazley took the first step. Now Randon is taking a step. We have a way for these auto parts to be sold. Ricardo and all the auto parts are on board in this project. So it's a project that we're going to get together. Thank you. I'm going to try to segment this out. We want to have the correct products for that market. That's why we're developing this type of truck body. So we have to have the right products. But segmenting the other 2 points, mechanical suspensions is not so significant for this market. There's a shortage of this product, and so we're going to act in this way. And the other part, the answer is we already began this journey before. Once we started with Suspensis in Mexico, developing pneumatic suspensions for the Mexican market and serving some of their trailer manufacturers, we already started to understand this environment. There was the lockdown in Mexico, but we retook the operations later on. But this year we consolidated this for that in that region. Thank you, Ricardo. For the next question, I want to talk about the Chinese competitors. We have a plant in China. Can you talk about that business environment? just to go back,
no nosso caso já está há muitos anos
Fras-le has been in the
disponível
U.S. for a long
no
time.
mercado. E
Our
vamos
products are
começar
approved,
também junto com a Randon, por
and
exemplo. A China
they'll
tem nesse
go with
momento,
Randon
pelo que eu
Hercules.
acompanho, um mercado com bastante dificuldade
Everyone
por
has
conta
been
das restrições,
looking at this
mas
market,
desde
but
que a tarifa
ever
dos
since
Estados
the
Unidos foi imposta,
duties were
realmente isso dá
imposed
uma oportunidade
in the
muito
U.S., it opens up
interessante
a
para
relevant window
produtos daqui,
so that
né,
products from here
competitivos,
that are
essa
competitive,
palavra não sai do radar, cheguem nos Estados Unidos com
these
mais
competitive
força, com
products
mais
can enter the U.S.
tranquilidade. Nós temos a planta da
We
China
have the
como exemplo,
Chinese
ela
plant
não
as an example.
consegue abastecer o mercado
It
americano
can't
atualmente
supply the
em função das
American market
tarifas
competitively
e
today
também em
because of the
função da
tariffs,
nossa
and also
competência
because of
local
our
de
local
conseguir ter
competency
custos
to
de
have
FOB equivalentes
FOB
aos
costs
chineses.
equivalent
Eu
to the
acho que toda essa
Chinese.
jornada de automação e
I think this journey
preparação
of
em escala do
automation
Brasil
and
vai
preparation of
ser
scale in
chave
Brazil will be
para
key
garantir a
to ensure the
competitividade da
competitiveness
Randon Hércules
of
lá,
Randon
levando
Hercules,
produtos daqui aonde
taking
devem
products
ser
from here
comprados da
instead
China.
of purchased in China.
Legal, obrigado, Cacau. Antes de passar também para outra pergunta, só
Before I go
lembrando
on
o
to
pessoal
other
que está
questions,
acompanhando online, quando mandar a pergunta pelo WhatsApp
I
também,
wanted
por
to
favor, fiquem à vontade.
share this
Agora
question
sim,
by
pessoal,
WhatsApp.
pergunta presencial, por favor.
Obrigado. Lucas Lag da XP.
Lucas of
Acho que aproveitar a
XP,
presença do Daniel aqui para explorar um pouco
I want to ask Danielle
a cabeça da companhia para alocação de capital, mas não como
about capital
uma
allocation,
empresa de autopeças simplesmente,
not
mas pensando
as an auto
numa
part company,
incubadora, levando em
but as an
consideração a parceria
incubator
aqui com a CTR, com a Randon Ventures. Né?
in Randon Ventures and
Você
CTR.
mostrou no slide ali
You showed a slide
da
of the
foto
startups.
comigo. Queria entender um pouco mais do filme, pensando na matriz de decisão, né, na hora de alocar capital,
Looking
não
at
só
capital
como modelo
allocation,
intelectual também na hora de vocês desenvolverem essas novas soluções
when you
e
develop
startups
these
e
new
novos
solutions.
projetos, né? Acho que até no slide da My One tinha um gráfico interessante
I think my
sobre o
ones
tamanho potencial
had an
do
interesting
mercado
graph
e
about the
evolução,
potential of the
a
market,
velocidade de monetização,
the
né, desses
speed
projetos.
of the
Então, mais entender
monetization.
um pouco como que é a
So I wanted to
cabeça na hora
understand
de
your
definir ali
head
os
when you
projetos que vocês
define
vão
the projects
colocar mais foco,
that
né,
you'll focus on
dar desenvolvimento mais acelerado ali
and have more
para
accelerated development.
produção e algo mais complexo, ou se é ao contrário, se é algo mais
Or if it's the
sinergico,
opposite, if it's more
operações
synergistic
com nível de complexidade menor que vocês
with higher
de uma
levels of
longa data
complexity.
consigam monetizar e trazer algum nível de eficiência, enfim, entender um pouco mais a cabeça,
I want to
a
understand
matriz de decisão
your way of thinking,
na
your
hora de
decision
definir os
matrix
principais projetos ali a serem
for the main projects to develop with this profile
incubadoras.
of the incubator. Thank you.
Obrigado, Lucas. Daniel, um comentário rápido, né? A gente sabe o quão difícil é o
We
trabalho
know
do Comitê de Investimentos
how hard this
acelerar
is
essas 3.000 startups e
to look at these startups.
a gente tem, por um lado, muitas
On one hand,
oportunidades, por outro
we have
lado,
several opportunities,
ninguém melhor que você sabe
but
que
you know that
capital é escasso, né? Os recursos
capital is scarce, resources are scarce.
constantemente a buscar uma melhor alocação de capital.
So we try to allocate our capital as well as we can.
Acho que dá para responder em duas partes.
I think I can answer two ways. Thank you for the question, but we're still learning. First of all of us, we all participate in our committee of Randon Ventures. We created a decision process where all the vertices are present, and what's most important is that we created a investment thesis where we have 6 vertices, and these 6 vertices talk with all of our 5 vertices. What we matured in over the last year, we started having more investments because we were learning. But our most recent investments, we have over 24 million reais invested in 8 startups, and one of them I can mention, Delta. Delta today is closely connected to Smart Randon project within the platform of financial services. It's already related to 2 new products that are going to be launched. So when it came time to decisions, we look at synergies, and we have to also bring something new. We have to bring a better technology that we can't develop inside the company. It's to short
né?
pathways.
Sinergia com os nossos
It's a
negócios.
synergy with our
E o lado da
businesses.
startup é tudo de bom,
On the
né?
startup
Porque ela
side,
tem
everything
uma
is fine
possibilidade de escalar aquela
because we're
solução
able to
dela
scale the
rapidamente,
solution
mas
quickly,
a gente também acelera o nosso
but we
processo
also
de
accelerate
time to market, né?
our time
De ir
to
para o
market
mercado
process
com soluções inovadoras.
with innovative
E isso que
solutions.
permeia o
This
processo,
is what permeates
né?
the
Só porque
process.
tem um
But
comitê
there's a
que
committee
consegue olhar para
that
toda
can look at
essa visão de
this
futuro
whole view of the
que a gente
future
apresentou hoje de manhã.
that we presented this morning.
Não sei, Anderson, Ricardo, né? que você
Anderson, Ricardo, you may have something to add. Feel free.
Eu acho que só a contribuição é de que são cheques pequenos.
I think that
dentro
there's
do
still small
tamanho, né,
checks
da
within the
nossa-
size of our
nosso poder de investimento,
investment
geração
power
de caixa.
and cash generation potential.
Curva de aprendizado.
This is the learning
Nada
curve.
do que tá ali vai
Nothing
nos
that's
machucar.
there will hurt
Isso
us.
é importante, por mais que a gente erre, não tem
Even if we make
machucar.
mistakes, it can't really hurt us.
Né? A gente
But that's
tem
not
que
what it's there
trabalhar,
for.
tem que
We're
estudar,
serious.
tem um comitê.
It's structured. There's a committee.
Synergia é a palavra.
Synergy is the word.
Encontrar sinergia
If we
com
find
algo
synergies with something new
é
that adds
isso que a gente
value,
tá buscando.
that's where we're going after it.
Perfeito. E Lucas?
Legal, obrigado.
Yeah,
Agora,
great.
chega a pergunta online, então vamos aproveitar quem está
Let's
aqui presencial.
let someone here ask a question. I'm Fernanda from BTG Pactual. It's great to see how Randon has transformed over the years, but I'd like to explore implements in terms of competitiveness. You adopted a strategy to not transfer pricing, and this affected your market share. I think on our previous interactions, you signaled that you would focus on trying to balance volume and price. Could you update us on how you've seen this? What's the market share like? Are you getting closer to 30%? Thank you. It's important to understand the decisions made that affected the share. What affects share? These decisions are made 3 to 6 months earlier. We had to stop in 2021 for the maintenance of our operations. These complex operations like the painting. We did this. We removed products. We had a question about inflation, which grew the last 2 years, especially for commodities, which opened in 2022. We had a portfolio more than 6 months, and it was complex. We made pricing decisions based on this. We had an interest in doing this. This affected our market share, but this has been retaken. We passed the first quarter 1 or 2 points behind the competition because the competition didn't grow. But we're now operating in the second quarter around 30-32%, and our share now should increase in the next several months. And so, as of June, we're starting with lots of new launches and lots of conditions, not just the supply, but the entire process of retaking. So we have better conditions for supply and all the work done with financial services credit analysis,
disponibilidade que
and
ele
availability.
também nos ajuda
This
a
helps
entregar um
us
maior volume de produtos,
get a
considerando
better
também
delivery
as
of
dimensões do produto
products
não estão
with
nele
products sized
empiricamente, né? Ou seja, tem a parte de crédito, tem a parte de relacionamento,
where
tem
we
a
have
parte
credit
de disponibilidade
and
de
other
estoque, tem
availabilities
o portfólio completo,
with a
e
full
isso a
portfolio.
Randon, por isso que a Randon tem
This
condições
is
de
why Hyundai
retomar a sua
can
condição de
retake their
liderança
leading position
naturalmente.
naturally.
Legal, Trentinho, muito obrigado.
Thank you,
Fiquei
Tinching.
curioso aqui,
Thank you very
durante
much.
a tua resposta, acabou entrando
With
aqui uma
your,
pergunta
there's another
online
question that came in
do
online
Rodrigo Faria, da Sul América Investimentos, não pude
by
entrar aqui para
Rodrigo
acompanhar, mas que era
from
sobre a questão
Sul
da
America
importância do fabricante,
Investments,
que você também já endereçou nessa
but I
mesma
think you already
resposta
addressed the
que foi
answer.
colocada aí, Trentinho. Em função do tempo, infelizmente,
Because
nós
of the
já chegamos
time,
ao fim dessa sessão de Q&A, então vou pedir para mais uma pergunta aqui, quem puder fazer, por favor.
I'm going to open up for one last question. You talked about Frasley. The company has tripled in size. You're up to a quarter of the top line of the company. What do you expect the growth to be in comparison to the other divisions of the company? Thank you. Thank you for the question. Our first cycle was completed with those numbers that I mentioned. I would say that our objective is to have a big dream. When I say that our dream is big, we have 630 million in funding, but with a possibility of leverage that could bring us 3, 4, 5 years of $1 billion, $1.5 billion in additional revenue. But a good portion of the revenue will probably be sent to increasing capacity for our product lines where we're at our limit, but where we could, because of the window in the export market, we could leverage this with markets which purchase a lot. So a lot of this will be geared towards capacity increase. NI1 and smart composites, as we develop traction and maturity, will also require important investments, since as the projects are won over, as the benefits of the technology are perceived in the various markets, we should allocate synergies. But our desire is that at a growth level between 11 and 14% within the scenario that we're already used to. We shouldn't go past that for the next several years. Since we have revenue resilience and cash generation, perhaps regardless of the economic cycle, it can maintain this growth, expected growth, which we saw in the previous cycle. I think it's important to also note that the replacement market isn't a growth market. Yes, we have to incorporate products, we have to go after new markets, technologies, we have to try to increase the average ticket size. There's various fronts which allow us to add value. In Brazil, we have some space, and in the geographic expansion. Thank you. Folks, unfortunately we have to wrap up. I want to thank you all for your time, for questions and answers. We had over 1,200 visualizations. It's nice to have this hybrid option. It allows this message to be spread more broadly. I want to give the floor to Patricia, thanking Daniel, Trencini, Stauchi, and Ricardo. We'd like to thank the panelists
pela disponibilidade
for their availability
aqui, também ao mediador Esteban.
and also our mediator Esteban.
CFO e DRI, Paulo
I want to call Paulo Prigonolato
mensagem final.
for the final message.
Bom dia, já boa tarde a todos, né?
Good morning, good afternoon now already.
Agradecer mais uma
I'd like to
vez
thank everyone
a presença de todos vocês.
for your presence,
Aqueles que estão aqui pessoalmente,
those who are here personally,
aqueles que estão participando
those
de
who
forma
are participating remotely.
Queria agradecer a participação do Daniel,
I want to
dos
thank
colegas do
the
comércio
presence
pelas
of
excelentes
my colleagues,
participações, o Trentin que está de forma remota, diretores das
both those who are here in person and remotely,
membros do conselho de administração,
and members of the board of directors, partners, shareholders, friends.
E eu sei que muitos de vocês
I know that
vão
several of you will leave
fazer
here
os seus relatórios,
and
né?
you'll write your
Então,
reports,
não poderíamos encerrar
so we
esse
couldn't
evento
close the
fechando
event
aqui com algumas palavras
without
chave.
a few keywords.
O controle, por favor, se vocês puderem.
Can you give me the controller?
Bem,
Small accident here.
eu acho que é importante vocês terem ciência de tudo que foi falado.
It's important for you to be aware of everything that was stated here. We're a solid, recognized company with a growing global presence.
O anúncio de mais uma
I think we had the announcement of another acquisition yesterday. We're on the right path, and we will continue bravely in these achievements, a culture of synergy. You saw the opportunities that we have in all our vertices that were presented very well by our colleagues. Sustainability in our strategy. ESG is a journey. It's something legitimate that's part of the culture of Hundong companies for over 70 years. Respect for society, respect for people, respect for the environment, and governance and continual involvement. It's in our blood and it will continue. Diversified business model. Sergio showed us at the beginning a business model that will bring resilience to our revenue and to our results. Financial discipline. We have never given that up. Our cash management, our investments, both organic and inorganic, and our concern with growth, but to grow with financial responsibility. This is something that we maintain and is part of our management as a whole. Innovation DNA, projects which are done that are in our pipeline, shown by Cesar. And with that, resilient results. So folks, so we're going to close this first step of the event, first stage of the event. I'd like to thank you all once again. I also want to thank Esteban, Caroline, Davi, Fabiana, Gustavo, Emerson, Jessica, are part of this team of investor relations, for the communications team, the support team. They worked hard and ensured this event with quality. We hope that you enjoyed it. I want to give the floor to Patricia because we're not done yet, especially those of you who are here in person. There's still a lot of good things to come, but I want to wrap up my participation. Thank you all. Thank you, Paulo. This event is supported by Apimec and Alicia Souza, the president of the entity, sent a video that I invite you all to watch.
Bom dia a todos.
Good morning, everyone. Members of APIMEC Brazil, I'd like to thank you. Thank the Executive Committee of Randon Companies, especially the Chairman, Daniel Randon, and the CEO, Sérgio Carvalho, for the excellent meeting and for the partnership between Randon and APIMEC. 22 years of consecutive meetings, and we're thankful. And we want to give you the Platinum Seal for 22 years. Thank you. In the name of Randon Companies, I want to thank everyone who is with us online in this Randon Day. We're sure that moments such as these reinforce the purpose of Randon Companies to connect people and wealth, generating prosperity. We close our transmission now. Thank you all for your participation and see you next time.